So we're trying it out. It's new. We'll find out how it appears to everybody in back. The one thing to note for the audience, because we are trying to make it a little more audible for the online, when we get to call to the public, I'm actually going to ask people if they can, if they're able to come on up to the microphone and just talk up there, and then that way people who are watching, and we'll find out eventually how many of them there are from home, can also see it. So with that, I will proceed to roll call.
Here.
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 Correspondence. We have some additions. We have one regarding the underground storage tank from Mr. Walden, and a batch of them from email.
Mr. President, could the ones pertaining to the fish stocking subject on our agenda be read at that time?
Yeah, I think we can hold them till we get to that item.
Thank you.
On the one from Mr. Walden regarding the underground storage tank, I did talk with our administrator. Once he sent in the question saying there hadn't been communication, she got back, left a, as I understand, a fairly long phone message with him. Hasn't heard back. If there is not enough communication, we'll see what we can do to make sure we close that gap and keep folks updated. The biggest update, month by month, is the slow pace of working with the state government on one of these items.
Okay.
So, with that, though, we may reopen the fish stocking ones. Do I at least have a motion to receive the correspondence?
So moved. Support.
Motion Nagy, second Nedrow. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, additions to business. And I don't know if folks have had a chance yet to see it. I sent out an email probably about an hour and a half before the council meeting. But we had a couple of requests for late requests for agenda items. We've had a few more of those lately. And so I just kind of laid out for folks how I'd like us to proceed with those, because I want us to stay in good habits here. We've generally been in good habits around these things. So when we get correspondence, like with the storage tank or the fish stocking, let's add them to correspondence. Late emails come in all the time, or late written ones. When we get just sort of requests for updates or general discussion, I'd like, if it's really just an update or a general discussion, let's make sure we put those in the updates. Update from the treasurer, update from the chief, update from the administrator. So we get those updates. If there's something you want to know about, yeah, sure, send along a note and just saying, hey, I want to hear about these things. And as far as adding agenda items to our business items, I'd really like us to make sure, number one, we avoid adding a late item if at all possible. If we do, it's an item that we need to make a decision on. So that's kind of the purpose of all of those business agenda items. So I just want to make sure we stay in good habits on that front. So with that, do I have any additions to business? There'll certainly be a few updates, and we'll get to those. Do I hear a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Motion Sinkowitz, second Scott. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, first call to the public. This is an opportunity for citizens to address the council on agenda items. As I said in the preamble, it's a little different. I'll ask you to come up, and if you can make it up to the mic, please do, so that we can hear your item. Champagne.
Linda Champagne, 250 Oak Island. I don't know if I want to say anything about fish stocking or not. Since you pulled the correspondence to put it at that time, I'm not sure what the correspondence is because I'm not privy to that. So if we can hear what the correspondence is now, that'd be great. If not, I reserve the right to speak at that time.
All righty. Anybody else? Sir.
My name's Tom Muir. I live at 2661 Tampa. I've been in this village about 30 years, and I fish this lake quite a bit. So do my sons, and so do a lot of my friends that don't live in the village. Regard this lake as a great bass fishing lake and great walleye lake. And I'm just wondering how the water board came up with the species, this channel cat, how did they arrive at that? Did any of these guys that are on the water board actually fish in this lake? And have they caught the bullheads that are in the lake right now? Most fishermen that I know, when they get them, they cut the line and they go back in. One of the major reasons they do that, and if you're gonna catch a channel cat, that's a pretty good size, is trying to strip the skin off of it. It's really a challenge. That's why most of the time they throw them back. You're probably better off with stocking with more walleye, or even put in smallmouth bass, which is really a heck of a fighting fish. I mean, there's a lot of guys that do a lot of bass fishing. They come to this lake. What I think the water board should have done, or maybe they still can before making this decision, is should have went to the landing on the weekends and asked the fishermen that come and go, what would you put in a lake, or what do you like as far as a species? You know, just coming up with channel cats, that to me is not really a good game fish. Your game fish are the walleyes, the smallmouth, and if you put, you could put, even plant in 300 small perch. Okay, they're another good eating fish. I think you're better off spending the money on a game fish that the fishermen and the people that fish the lake, this lake, that live on the lake, are going to keep. So that's my opinion on it.
All right, thank you. Mr. Malik.
Bob Malik, 1620 Thurston. I'd also like to comment on the fish stocking that the water board has come up with on item C, and it's number 3, which they want to add 300 channel cat, flathead minnows, golden shiners. Prior to my leaving council, and I'm going back a year, September or October of last year, we had a very healthy discussion about these type of fish. The DNR recommended it, and nobody here seems to be interested in it. You still have the Go Fishing pamphlet out by the DNR, and if you go through this and you look at catfish, the catfish are prominent in 2 lakes in Oakland County, okay? Now, they say there is some in other lakes, but for any prominence, it's in 2 lakes. If it was such a great idea, they would promote it and push it into every lake in this county. And like the gentleman said, who's a fisherman, we don't need garbage fish. This is not why people sport fish this lake. A year ago, we had the conversation about the large fish, the pike and the bass and the walleye that are eating the little ones. 2 years ago, I was on a council here and made the mistake of putting in these little feeders. All these little feeders don't get eaten. They grow into more junk fish. We need fish that are prominent to eat the junk, okay? I mean, God put them here for a reason, but not for us to put them into Wolverine Lake. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
I probably don't need this because I speak loud. Paul Biediger, 2622 Oakview Drive. Excuse me. I'm here to speak in favor of the channel catfish. People are looking at this as a fish for sport fishing. I recently resigned from the water board due to other commitments. We didn't come up with this willy-nilly idea. We went through fish biologists and professionals in the state to get this recommendation. I also sent an email correspondence with a lot of information on it about channel cats. These fish are the state fish in 5 states. There's over 8 million fishermen that fish for them all the time. You go to the grocery store, you do not see bass and pike on the menu. Or in this thing, you see catfish. They're actually a very good eating fish. They are very good at getting rid of the numerous stunted panfish in this lake. I fish this lake all the time. I fish tournaments all the time. The bass, they're naturally reproducing. We don't need to stock them. The walleye, we have to stock them because the lake isn't designed to support their reproduction. Smallmouth bass, you may catch 1 or 2 every couple of years in this lake. This lake does not support them. That is a fact given to us by the DNR. But if you look at the correspondence that I gave you, you will see the benefits of channel cats. The water board wants to put these fish in so that they will help get rid of some of the numerous stunted fish. Anybody who lives on the water as I do, you go out on your dock, you see 50 to 100 bluegill that are 3 to 4 inches long because they cannot get any bigger. The channel cats will come in, they will clean them out. The fish they are looking at are sterilized fish. They're not going to reproduce, they're not going to go crazy. The cooler temperatures will stunt their growth down a little bit. And if you've ever caught one, I've caught thousands of them and I've eaten them, they are great fighting fish. That we need to look at this as we need to fix our lake to get our fishing better. If we get some of the channel cats in there, 300 isn't a lot. You've got 297 acres of lake, I think is what the our new water management company has told us what we have in surface area. If we get rid of some of these stunted fish, our fishery is going to be that much better. The bass will get better, the pike will get better, the walleye will get better. We're looking at this as a whole, not a personal attack to say that's what we want. We went through a lot of channels to get this information, not just pulling it up on the internet and throwing darts at it to say, hey, channel cats look good. So I do speak in favor of it. Like I said, there is some correspondence with a lot of very good information that I sent you. Thank you.
Thanks. Anybody else? Kowski.
Gene Matkowski, 670 Wolverine Drive. I'm here to speak against the channel cats. And I'm not a fisherman, but my grandsons are. And their first thing to me when they heard about this was, Grandpa, you're going to increase our allowances to buy fish hooks because you don't get them out of their mouths. The other thing is, everybody's quoting all these experts from the DEQ. These are the same experts that in the 60s bought 125 geese because they were nice to have. Our population now is in excess of 50,000. This is the same department that 15 years ago stocked our lake with fingerlings and come the next day with poison to kill the stunted fish. So that's how much credit they have as far as I'm concerned. I recommend that you don't go with them. Thank you.
Anybody else? Seeing none, I will close the first call to the public. And we will move on to approval of consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Motion Sinkowitz, second Nedrow. Further discussion? Roll call vote?
Nedrow.
Yes.
Sinkowitz.
Yes.
McGee.
Yes.
Nagy.
Yes.
Kaczynski.
Yes.
Humble.
Yes.
Scott.
Yes.
Motion carries. Okay, that brings us down to item 12A, business reports and recommendations from Engineer Powell. A healthy list today. Well, let's start with number one. Oh yeah, the mic is yours.
Mike.
I can do that.
We'll see how we feel about this. We may need a few more mics to make this work.
Not a problem. Good evening, council. Item number one is an issue that I request to be put back on the council agenda because I didn't feel, and Sharon and I didn't feel we received adequate guidance from council on a number of these issues. And you see my letter of October 4th. There are 5 items there that I would like to initiate the discussion and get some feedback on, maybe a straw poll or however you, Mr. President, would like to give the guidance to us on the width of the shoulders, whether or not we wanted to extend some paving on South Commerce Road, repair a low spot on the right-hand turn in South Commerce Road, pave the area between the, extend the right-hand turn on South Commerce Road, and then pave approaches going into, towards the Commerce Township side of Glengarry Road. All paving would still be in the village right-of-way, the 64 right-of-way, but it would be turning into the Commerce Township properties. There are pros and cons to all of these issues, and I would very much appreciate some discussion and maybe some guidance on these, and I can give you some technical supports And keep in mind, the reason that they're on here is I took bids on these items to provide you with the information to know how much these items might cost. And then we had some discussion on the pros and cons, the safety of some of these items as well. So I'd be more than happy to discuss any technical issues, but it's really a policy issue that I need from council.
Okay, well, let's,
I have a couple.
I have a question.
I'll start going down the list.
hold on, before we go, so we've got a couple here. I was just gonna suggest that we go down the list kind of one by one and hit them as we go through. Is that okay with everybody?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, okay.
You're
so
the leader.
So let's start with paving Glengarry Road, either 4 feet wide, the shoulders either 4 feet wide or 2 feet wide. We had a pretty good discussion, robust discussion about that last month. How does council feel about that?
Well, I guess one of the things I didn't, your presentation was, to me, so outreaching that usually you bring in a proposal of the basics of what we want, and now if you want to do this, and you want to do that, and you want to do this, we can add it, where we had to almost like subtract everything out of your proposal. And the problem that I have is, do we know the distance of Glengarry from South Commerce to Betsy? Is it a mile?
It's about 1.5 miles.
Okay, 1.5 miles. So a mile's what, 500 and?
5,000.
2,080 feet, right, okay. So you're gonna add 2 feet for 1.5 miles, that's approximately 8,000 feet on both sides of the road.
Correct.
That's a tremendous amount of material that we're putting down on the road. And the other problem, the biggest problem I have with this, and we discussed this, you personally and at the meeting, is that most of the time roads break up and go bad from the shoulder in.
Correct.
Cars go off the edge, they break it, water gets underneath, the whole 9 yards. The problem is that twofold. If you go another 2 feet, you're gonna have to move mailboxes, you're gonna have to move guard railings, because the asphalt will be right up to or underneath the guard railing. And secondly, if you add 2 feet more to that, if you just put it over the gravel that's there, it's gonna break up and it's gonna be a mess. You're gonna have to dig down, put in at least 6 or 8 inches of gravel, and it'll actually be part of the road, but it's gonna be the weakest part of the road. And I think that if you look at Glengarry now, most of the cracking and the problem starts is where the shoulder and the road meet. I think that what's there is adequate, and let's not remember what happened when we widened the road on Wolverine Lake Drive.
Right.
I went back out there and did some testing on my own. We got the contractor back out there, had to cut out asphalt, put gravel in, and patch it. And I think the worst thing you could do on Glengarry Road is, in a short period of time, have to go out there and doing patching. So I see no reason to make it 4 feet wide on each side, both cost-wise and stability of the road-wise.
So let me make sure I understand technically what we're talking about in that extra 2 feet. We're talking about, right now, a road with a 2-foot paved shoulder and a 2-foot gravel shoulder. We're talking about extending the paving over the gravel shoulder so that it's 4 foot paved, and that's the end of the shoulder, right?
No,
Actually,
you have
we
to put gravel down, too.
Actually, we have 2 11-foot lanes and a 2-foot shoulder maximum on Glengarry Road. In some areas, it's only 1 foot, and a total of a 6-foot shoulder, 2 of which is paved, 4 of which is unpaved. So we would still end up, in the majority of Glengarry Road, still having 2 foot of gravel on the outside of the new 4-foot cross-section outside the white line, to the outside of the white line. Ed's discussion is absolutely apropos. I have done the surveying up and down the roadway, and we aren't moving any mailboxes. We would not be moving any guardrails or anything like that. They're all outside the existing gravel shoulder. So that's not an issue. Shoulders used to never be paved. Oakland County, they used to stop the paving right at the white line. The problem is people unfortunately get distracted. They kind of slide off the road and they hit the edge of that gravel, and it's always not nearly as smooth as the rest of it. And so they would, it would make them swerve off the road more, and that pounding on the edge of that gravel and the edge of that pavement did break up the edge of the road. So Ed's absolutely correct. So by adding on 2 to 3 feet, and that's the county standard, adding 2 to 3 feet, keeping in mind that the county does not allow pavement wider than that. We've been through that because they do not want to even recognize that people use those shoulders for walking and riding bikes. So the reason why you pave a shoulder is to maintain the integrity of the actual edge of the road. So when people leave over that white line, they don't hit gravel and break up the edge of the road. The proposal is to extend the pavement portion of the roadway 4 inches thick, the asphalt, over an additional 2 feet on the shoulder side and still have 2 feet of gravel after that, all at the same elevation. Ed may be referring to a portion of Glengarry Road, the southern side of the roadway down on the western end, which we really only have about 4 feet of gravel altogether. Andy and I had an opportunity to talk about that, and he's concerned, just as Ed is, that if you get the 4 foot of pavement right to the edge, just as it drops off the edge into the curb, edge into the ditch line, if cars get over there, there's no support for the edge of that gravel. And I totally agreed with him. And in that area, my plan would be to keep it at least 1 foot inside so we have gravel supporting the edge of that pavement. And again, this is just strictly a suggestion. That's why I designed it that way, just to find out what it would cost. We're in the range of about $35,000 to add that additional 2 feet on both sides. And so it's an issue that I just bring before council for your wisdom.
Okay.
Mike?
Actually, wait a second. I had a question.
Okay.
Go back for. But it's escaped me. I heard Mr. Scott first, and then we'll go to Mr. Nagy.
Geez, I hope mine hasn't escaped me. You said $35,000 additional cost. What is that in contrast to the overall budget for paving this entire road?
Yes, it's a $500,000 project.
Okay, so we're not even,
Correct.
okay.
Adds about
Relative
7%.
to reading we're talking about 2 or 4 feet, and yet you were using 2 to 3 feet as sort of a county principle, somewhere between 2 and 3.
Correct.
There must have been a reason why you went for the 4 feet. For the audience, basically our conversation last meeting involved safety, bikers who do have the right of way to use the road. What is your feeling on going to 4 feet? What was the reason why you thought 4 feet was a logical thing rather than 3?
I'm, like the rest of you, a driver of cars here in Oakland County.
Okay.
The state of Michigan, the courts have held that bicyclists have the right to use the roadway just as a car does. And I've been behind rows and rows of cars waiting for an opportunity for cars to get around the bicyclists, because the only spot that they can ride is to the left of the white line. And therefore, I just thought, knowing that we have a pathway system that we are looking to promote and allowing for bicyclists and walking around the village, I just thought that would be probably a safer way to traverse for pedestrians and bicyclists along Glengarry Road. That's the reason. There's a technical reason. The protection of the edge of the road can be done with a 2 or 3 foot shoulder.
Mhm.
It wouldn't have to be 4 foot.
Now, as far as the disintegration of that edge, that shoulder between 2, 3, and 4 feet, because you're going to go 4 feet, you're not going to experience any greater degeneration. The road bed, as I think Ed referred to it, underneath that will be strong enough to hold the car if it should get over onto that 4 foot?
That's correct. There's 8 inches of gravel underneath the existing roadway, the existing shoulder area. I was proposing to extend the same asphalt cross-section that the roadway is going to have all the way over for the curbing. The county does their road profile in the travel portion of the road and then reduces down to just a 2-inch shoulder outside the roadway. I was certainly concerned about the same thing Ed is, and therefore I was proposing a 4-inch cross-section over the entire distance, so I end up with virtually the same capacity on the shoulders as on the roadway.
Okay. Well, I just would like to agree with you on your observation, whether it's 3 feet or 4 feet, the number of bikers that I come across in my travels is increasing. I guess that's a good thing. The number of gang riders seem to be increasing. I mean, when you come up and there's 4, 5, 6, or 10 guys and gals all riding along, so if it's a minor amount of additional expense, I guess I'd just like to say openly that I'm in favor of 4 feet, minimum of 3.
All right. Mr. Nagy?
Yeah, Mr. Powell, relative, is there any kind of rules that Oakland County sets down that says you have to have 2 foot or you have to have 4 foot? Since we're maintaining the road, they have no say-so on what we do to the road.
They have no say-so what we do with the road at all. Their guideline is when they pave a road, they either add curbing or they add a 2-foot paved shoulder. That's their general policy.
And would you'd still stripe the edge of the road so there'd be a definitive 4-foot section on the side of the road that would be more easier for our bike rider to see that he could ride there, as opposed to the left of the line, he could ride to the right of the white line.
That would
On the
be,
edge of the road.
that's the goal, that's correct. To have an 11-foot traffic lane and a 4-foot area that bikers knew that they would be potentially a little safer than riding on the travel portion of the roadway.
Now, how does that 2 foot or 4 foot compare to the other major roads that circle the village? I know on the south side it's a little bit hard to, or with that side. But I mean, Commerce, South Commerce, and Benstein, they really don't have, do they even have 2 feet?
No, they end up with about 6 inches. The white line is just about on the edge of the pavement.
Okay, thank you.
Pam, it occurs to me, I think you had a question.
I had a question in general, but it was more, I read it numerous times, and I'm having a hard time understanding the difference between 2 and 4. So I just wanted a better understanding there, not on one.
Oh, okay. I have, by the way, recollected my question, which was just in general. That road, it's posted at 35. It's one of the roads that it's really tempting to go faster than that already. Do we have any concerns that widening the road, creating a wider appearance of the road, will lead people to increase the speed at which they're driving?
I think the chief would be a very good one to ask that, but psychologically, that they have a propensity to increase speed, the safer they feel.
And I agree, Mr. Paul, and especially with a new road, you're gonna find that traffic is going to increase as well as the speeds are going to increase. Obviously, our sign is gonna help with that, but just allowing you to know how fast you are going. For a good example is Decker Road, very tempting to go over 25 miles an hour on that new Decker Road stretch. And they are enforcing that very strongly right now, as you will see, drive down through there. My direction, my officers will be the same, to enforce that and be very present out here. I think we do a fairly decent job right now, especially with the school kids going back and forth between OTEC and Wall Lake Central, or Wall Lake Western and Wall Lake Central. There's a lot of school traffic, and we do try to reduce them, so. Yeah, I do believe, that regardless of even if it's wider, it may increase the speeds a little bit, but new pavement's going to do that.
John, one quick thing.
Yep.
I think, just so that everybody is clear, is that the shoulder that we have now is approximately, give or take, 2 feet. What Mike wants to do, add another 2 feet of asphalt. Then after that, we gotta add gravel, a couple feet of gravel. So, I can tell you right now that across from the dam, you're gonna have to either pave underneath that guardrail or remove it, or move it. Because right now, there's only this much space between the end of the asphalt and the guardrail. But, and there's other places like that where the mailboxes are just on the edge of the gravel. So you're not just adding 2 feet, you're adding 4 feet. 2 more feet of asphalt, so there'll be a total of 4 feet of asphalt at the end of the road, and now you gotta add the gravel for the shoulder. So we're adding more than that. And the problem I have is that the gravel that was just thrown down to protect the edge of the existing road and water is not 6 inches deep. or thickness. It's, all it was just like we did on all of our other roads. You put it on there so you don't have that drop off or that cliff. And I'm not to argue, Mike, but I really think by the time the gravel is put in, the extra asphalt and removing and putting a base in there for 2 feet of pavement, almost 3 miles long, I think it's gonna be a lot more than $35,000 extra. But I'm not a mathematician.
We can always ask to bid it both ways and find out what the actual cost is. One other thing that's occurred to me as we've talked about that stretch is we really do have visible bike and pedestrian path for at least about half of it. You know, pretty much from the parking lot on our side in the park, you know, for the Vita Trail, all the way up to the corner there. So you know, hopefully pedestrians and bicycles are off that part. I almost wonder if the money we would spend on shoulder widening wouldn't be better spent on putting a proper sidewalk in that would, you know, really genuinely get people off that path or a proper bike path,
Yeah.
something
That's a good thought.
Where would that sidewalk be, John?
probably on our side.
On our side,
Yeah.
from all the way down to?
From like Vita Trail parking lot down to the Tasty Freeze.
The concern with that is, if you recall, when the water main was put in, they actually directionally drilled underneath the trees,
Mhm.
because the trees there are between the ditch line and the right-of-way, and there is, we would end up either removing all those trees or putting it on, getting an easement from property owners
To have to put it
inside those
on
trees.
their actual lawns.
I do have a question, John. Mike, if you widen the road on the side from 2 to 4, would that help or make any difference at all to Andy and the crew in wintertime when they're plowing snow?
We talked to Andy about that, and he said that he plows the shoulders anyway, and so I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, he didn't see any difference whatsoever whether it was paved or not paved.
You're correct.
I just wondered if he plowed so far and he was gathering a lot of gravel, and maybe if it was wider, he wouldn't be scraping gravel.
No, and I'm not proposing to extend the gravel at all. When they go down and mill, I'm looking to take 4 inches of pavement, 4 inches of gravel, and matching the existing gravel on both sides. So I'm not looking to extend the gravel on beyond where it's at right now. So it's, again, there's no right or wrong. I'm just looking for direction from council.
It looks to me like we have three possibilities here. We can go 2 feet, we can go 4 feet, or we can ask for bids on both and, you know, punt it down the road until we actually see costs.
I suppose we could go for 3,
I was thinking the same thing.
or in line
Another
with what
combination.
I guess Ed was talking about. There's going to be areas where you could put 4, other areas where it might be a little more logical to put 3.
And that was the intent, obviously, as you're out there in the field work. There are some areas where we only have 3-foot gravel, and so we can really only do 2 feet, especially at the west or the end. So that would be a very logical item.
I like John's idea, we bid it both ways.
Mhm.
Then they're gonna know what labor is involved, with
Yep.
gravel, the
Sure.
material and everything, and then if it's, you know, a minimal amount compared to the whole project, but if not,
Yeah,
Right.
and another
Yeah,
possibility is
yeah. we're not gonna do that
potentially
for a while.
we expand it down where we don't have any biker pathway, but,
Right.
you know, in the areas down here where there's a good, clear alternative.
Keep in mind that down here, where we actually have pathway adjoining the roadway, I need to actually pave and mill right to the edge of the existing pathway, you know, that we have pavement all the way through. And so that was already going to be paved to blend into the existing pathway, and then it would be striped so that people knew the difference between pathway and that. So you're right, I already have to extend that 4 feet to match where the existing pathway is.
Okay, so.
It seems
So
to me-
it sounds like we have consensus to look at it, to look at, ask for both and see what the actual
It
difference is.
seems to me that what makes the decision difficult is that, you know, regarding the road, pertaining the road, the generation, I mean, Mike's right, people do kind of, whatever, rightly or wrongly text, they do wander off the road. So the damage to the road is less likely if the paved shoulder is wider.
Yep.
That's pretty much common sense. And I have some fiduciary concerns also, but whether it's 3% or 5% or whatever it ends up with on the budget, you know, I trust Mike's numbers on that. So that doesn't seem overly consequential, my concern. But what concerns me more than anything is this kind of implied but undefined safety to bikers issue. Like, we can't call it a bike path, we can widen the shoulder using the premise that it's a safety issue or whatever. But you kind of, it's like a, you know, wink wink, it's actually for bike path or something like that. But though you can't define it as such. I mean, is our intent implied or unimplied or undefined or not defined or defined?
I don't really
to
think
be
this is a
that?
case where we're giving people an unimplied bike path, because as Mike said earlier, you know, bikers do have a right to use that road, and they do use that road. It's really a matter of creating maybe a little bit more space for bikers and cars that go by, but I you know, it's not gonna be a bike path, it's not a bike path. But it's a road, but bikes can go on the road. And they do, actually, you know, that might be a good question to ask our captain, who's sat out there a lot more than I have. How many bikers do you see on that road?
On Glengarry?
Yep.
Actually, quite a few, but they do take the bike path once they reach this area. But coming up, you know, obviously up until
Mhm.
the party store, it is quite a number. It's dangerous, obviously, and pedestrians. We hit a lot of pedestrians through the subdivision that don't walk the back way. They walk down this way, walk in front, so. We do get our fair share. I like your sidewalk idea better than the extra paving, but I don't know if that's gonna be logistically possible, but I would like to explore that a little more. I think that might really help us.
That to me would be the best solution, but it really depends on,
And
you know,
it
where
would
that
stop
tree
at
line
the,
is.
footpath. I would actually like to be able to see it continue on right down in front of here. But, I think the problem we're gonna have, or one of the things is the ditches. We're gonna have to address the ditch situation, between here and there.
Well, I mean, it occurs to me that if we've got a tree problem there, you know, maybe you can put it in where it goes over covered ditch, but that's difficult and more costly than if you've got an easy
But I
path.
would like to explore that a little more. I think that's a very good viable option that we have. If we're gonna spend the money, the extra money for the widening of that road, I would rather see that money invested in something than where we can keep all the pedestrians safe.
Yeah, I mean, if it's 35,000, that's, you know, it's maybe not the full sidewalk, but it's a good chunk of sidewalk there.
I'm sure it is.
So consensus on council to get both costs?
Yeah.
Is that what I'm seeing here?
Yeah.
Okay. Number two, so maybe Pam had a question about what's
Yeah,
involved here.
You know, I keep reading, you know, paving to the right-hand turn lanes, you know, Benstein and South Commerce, and 4 says, you know, the right-hand turn lane on South Commerce, so I guess I'm just a little.
Tell you what, Mike, why don't you give us the overview on which one you mean there?
Yeah, items 2, 3, and 4 pretty well discuss the same issue that came up the last council meeting. The right-of-way of Glengarry Road and South Commerce Road is 60 feet into the village from the center line of Benstein Road and South Commerce Road. Give you a ballpark idea, the turning radius, the curves that lead you onto Glengarry Road, when those curves stop on Glengarry Road, either from west to east on Benstein or from east to west off of South Commerce Road, that is the start of the village limit. So if we didn't want any paving at all in a county road right-of-way, the actual paving, the new paving for Glengarry Road would start 60 feet from the center line of both Benstein Road and South Commerce Road after the radius, after you've already turned onto Glengarry Road. Kind of give you a mental picture. I apologize, I should have had a map here so I could have showed you all that. The one issue was, and normally you don't start a paving project inside where most folks might think the road starts. Most people think the road starts right out at the intersection because they're turning off of one road onto another road, but it'd be approximately 30 feet after they've turn where we would start the paving. So the issue is, where should that paving start and stop? My design anyway right now is that I have to blend the Glengarry Road into South Commerce Road and Glengarry Road into Benstein Road. I've started 12 feet, or at the right-hand turn lane, as you're going down the right-hand turn lane, the left side, the entire right-hand turn lane would be repaved. So if you're on that right-hand turn lane, you're on new paving, and you're going to stay on new paving as you turn onto Glengarry Road, kind of on both sides. A little different on Benstein Road because there's no right-hand turn lane actually on Benstein Road. So it would be where the edge of Benstein Road would continue straight. That's approximately where I would propose starting and stopping the paving. So the issue is then where to start and stop that paving. And to complicate things a little bit more, there are repairs that need to be made on the right-hand turns or in that area, that no man's land area that is considered, that is in reality, Oakland County Road right-of-way. There are catch basins at that end that are collapsing in and need some repair in this area where I was proposing to pave. And there is a dip in the right-hand turn lane on South Commerce Road where water settles until it slowly drains away. And then while we were at it, I just wanted to find out what it would cost to extend that right-hand turn lane and tie in the right-hand turn lane with a passing lane just to the north. There's a passing lane that people use to get around traffic turning left into the Commerce Township subdivision. So it would extend that right-hand turn lane by about 100 to 150 feet. These are just options. As I'm traveling around, watching traffic flow, not necessarily just in the village, but in certain intersections when traffic is all backed up, the right-hand turn lane people are stuck in the same traffic when they could, if the right-hand lane were long enough, they could get off and make the right-hand turn lane and then squeeze the traffic a little closer that wanted to go straight or turn left. So it was just an idea. So the cost then to extend that right-hand turn lane on South Commerce Road is about $5,000. To fix that dip in the right-hand turn lane is approximately $4,500, something like that. To pave those areas would be approximately $8,000 in the Oakland County Road right-of-way. So the question is, where do we cut that line off? And that's just as straightforward as I can say.
Well, on this one, I think my opinion is still what it was when we talked about it last week, which is all of these areas are really heavily traveled by village folks. If we wait for Oakland County Road Commission to do it, we may be waiting a long, long time. Especially getting a longer right-hand turn lane up there where South Commerce comes down. I know that's a backup problem. We're gonna have a new development up there.
I very seldom, I very seldom see a big backup there because everybody can turn right, and I always thought that you had to have an egress and a egress where you could combine the two, but have we, in all this work that we want to do for Oakland County for free, have we approached Oakland County and telling them what we have going on and saying, are you willing to contribute something towards this? I mean, if not, because I don't see any reason why we're doing all this on Glengarry, even though we get some pittance for it, but to do all this other stuff out of the goodness of our heart, we're not that wealthy.
So that everybody knows, I'm not proposing.
I know, I'm
My
just
plan is never
asking.
proposed on doing anything in the straight through. So this is only people that would be using Glengarry Road. So that being said, we've applied for a permit because it's in Oakland County Road right away. We have to get their blessing and apply for a permit for that work in Benstein Road and South Commerce Road. That permit's been applied for, but I have not asked the powers that be whether or not they would be willing to front any monies for the improvements of those areas.
Yeah,
And that might be a wise
I
thing
think
to
where
do.
the paving starts and the paving ends, obviously you want to do it right up there so you don't have a couple 10 or 15 feet of old road. And the turn coming in needs repair because it's sunken. And you don't, no use paving over a dip that's already there. But I don't see any reason to do that other shoulder there. I mean, I'm sure I'm not the only one on this council that travels that road at rush hour and at all other times, and I've never seen a backup where I thought it was really necessary. Do we have many accidents on that intersection turning right?
South Commerce and Glengarry?
Yeah, turning right into on Glengarry?
A few rear enders, nothing usually major, but I mean, obviously you're gonna get your fender benders.
Yeah,
just
okay.
Because of the,
I mean-
I would blame it on the inexperienced drivers when it comes into high schools.
Yeah.
But we do get the fender benders, and I do see that big dip. And obviously in the winter time, that's when the road has been through, so I think that does need to be repaired.
Well, I certainly agree with that. It's worth asking Oakland County Road Commission if they,
You bet.
present it to them, hey, we're doing this project, we'd like to take care of some pieces of your road. Can you reimburse X and C? But I still think it's worth doing out of these funds. These are major road funds. We get this money from the state to take care of major roads in the village. What I'd like to see us not do is kind of what just happened on Pontiac Trail, where they fixed Decker above, they fixed Decker below, and they left in the middle a giant pothole-laden,
Yeah.
you know, four-wheel drive play area. Instead of, you know, you're doing all that paving in between, get the road so it just travels through. And
That's very obvious that that is a county road. Pontiac Trail's a county
Yep.
road. And so they said, we're not going to do the county road, we're going to do our road. And that was kind of the way that was left.
right, and just not my road, but to me, driving through there, you've got a big, you've done 2 miles of paving, and right in the middle of it, you've got potholes.
Maybe that's an indication how
Yeah.
Oakland County would react to our
I think
request.
that's a likely outcome. But in the overall scheme of this
We need-
fairly
we
large
need to ask,
project,
yeah.
these are all road repairs that need doing, heavily traveled by the
Sure.
village. You know, we've got 100 more housing units coming in up just north of that intersection, so, you know, we'll see how much travel happens there. The initial report was probably not a lot at peak hours, but I think it's at least worth bidding them.
And I think too,
getting
we
them.
have to remember that we get money for local roads and major roads, but Laguna is a major road. And that route needs repair. So I'm looking at, do what we need to get done, but let's not drift a little bit too far that when it comes time to some of these other major roads, and the other stuff that we have to do, you know, we're short.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, Ed. I mean, Scope Creek
Let's
is a
spread it
problem here.
around.
We
We'll
also
not
use
put
a
it
lot
all
of
in
those
one pot.
funds to do minor roads, but I'm saying if we're gonna do this project, I think we should do it correctly. But
I think the situation at Glengarry and South Commerce is much more severe than Benstein.
I was
and
thinking the same
Glengarry.
thing.
And I think it's really a safety issue, because that dip is gonna just get worse. And
That's
rightly or
good.
wrongly, people misinterpret the right-hand lane starting, or the
That's
right-hand
right,
turn lane
yeah.
starting where
I've
that
seen
little
number-
pass
number
round
of
is
people
there.
do
Then all of a
that.
sudden, oh, they gotta get back in and get across. So, I mean, this seems relatively inexpensive, almost, I feel like it's inaccurate. I can say that, Mike, but, I mean, if we could do that scope of work for that,
it's about
Budget.
1% of the total cost of the project.
yeah, I mean, it seems to be a bigger job than that.
About
That's all I'm saying.
$25,000, right?
What is?
It's cost about $25,000 to do that.
All that work to just, it can be broken up. It's actually been divided up.
Oh, yeah.
So to extend that right lane is about $5,000. To repair the dip, you can say is approximately $5,000. And to do that paving then is $8,000 or
That one's
$9,000.
15,000, I think you said.
Right.
so.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree. I think if you had to cut money, I would do Glengarry and South Commerce and not so much with fencing.
That's what I feel.
That's the intersection that worries me more, too.
Yeah.
Just a general question and to follow up on what Ed was talking about. Laguna is part of the major road fund. Are there other roads in the village for those that are not familiar with those definitions?
A portion of Wolverine Lake is, one of the cross, Dunreath, I think, down underneath.
Okay, so there are other.
There are a few others. In terms of the road fund overall, and Mike will remember the exact numbers better than I, but it's like 75% of the money that comes into us is major road fund,
Mhm.
but 75% of our total mileage is minor road. And we're allowed to transfer a certain amount from major road to minor road, and that's what we've generally done. But, you know, at this point, we've got a major road repair that needs doing.
I
you feel there's a consensus at this point then to tell Mike regarding direction is what he wants, that we focus the energies or his efforts on twofold. One, to focus, getting some definitive cost on South Commerce and Glengarry versus Bensing and Glengarry, leaving that out of the mix, at least for now. And then pursuing a, some sort of a partnership or association with the county to maybe offset some of the cost.
I think I'd like to see bids on all, but I'd like us to approach Oakland County and see if they're willing to reimburse it. And, you know, if we get a bid on it, we can tell them, hey, we would be willing to, as part of this project, do this work in this right of way, if you will reimburse us. If they don't, if they're not willing, then we can come back and we can have a, you know, definitive decision on which parts we want to proceed with.
Yeah, I agree. I think we ought to get bids on all these options that Mike has presented and also go to Oakland County and see what they're gonna do for us.
I think that's
what
wise. We can break it out to where you have the numbers, and we'll have responses back from Oakland County and
Yeah.
everything then.
And, you know, I'm not optimistic, but that's a pretty big chunk in. It's a pretty big, it's a tiny little bit for Oakland County, but it's a pretty good-sized intersection for them, and it takes care of one of their problems
Yes.
quickly. Okay, so we've got those, and number 5, the 2 Commerce Township roads and the park entrance. I think on that one, I kind of felt we were pretty much in agreement that we would like to get the bid cost, but if it's to proceed, it needs to be Commerce Township that pays for it, because it's their park, their driveway.
I agree.
When Oakland County comes in and paves a roadway, they typically pave the returns coming off of that roadway as well. That's one of the reasons why I just included in for pricing. I did touch base with Commerce Township. It's Woodlawn and Brisbane. The north side of those roads are gravel right out to the edge of our roadway. I think it was left last time that we would take that shoulder right down straight across those entrances and then leave the roads gravel. Commerce Township does not own roadways. They don't get any Act 51 funds whatsoever, and so they don't have anything except general funds to be able to put towards roadway repair. They do have a park and rec, however, and they are looking from their parks and rec to see whether or not they'd like to incorporate paving a portion of their roadway or their entrance into the park as part of this project. It's going to be the least costly way for them to do that, and they'd be willing to approach that if they know what that number is, if we bid it that way. I think I shared with you last time, they'd also like to know what it might cost to add another drive onto Glengarry Road from that park. It's so full, they'd like to have a secondary access. And so the engineer for Commerce is going to work with us to decide maybe where the right spot for that secondary access might be, and then they would cover that cost as well.
Okay.
Right.
I'd say let's bid it and get back to them with numbers.
Right.
Okay, so does that give you enough to proceed with on the bidding?
On all of item number 1, yes, sir.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5? Oh, yeah, okay, so item 1 on, okay, so we're good with item 12A12, but we're not nearly done.
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, item 2, 2013 Road Maintenance Program, small paving bid results, or lack thereof.
Yes, if you recall, originally I had bid a number of small little projects with the big paving program. And that was a way to entice the smaller work to get done. When we decided that it was a little too costly and the timing wasn't right to repave all of the Glengarry Road right now, we put it out for bids, the smaller project. That's the Oak Island Drive, the pathway along McCoy, and the repair of the Clara Miller Park entrance. Well, after calling and personally inviting 8 contractors, emailing them, talking to them, all their questions, when it came to bid time, we got 0 people showing up. Nobody wanted to bid on it. A combination of a couple things. The end of the year, they're all swamped. They're all trying to beat the weather on the work they have. So contractors are being blessed now with more than enough work that they could to get done. They didn't want to add anything more to it. And those smaller type projects are nuisance type projects. They're hard to get in. They're small little things. And so no one was willing to bid on it. So my proposal is to repackage those with a big contract so that we know that they'll get done, and we'll certainly be able to separate those costs out so you know what those costs are. There's a two-edged sword in doing that. If I separate out those costs and itemize all of those specifically individually, the contractors say, well, we'll bid the big, high-profile item, good price, but we'll go over above on these other ones. We'll pad our bid on these other ones, hoping that we don't get it. That they might say, oh, these are too costly, we're not gonna do these. If I combine them all together, they don't have an opportunity to separate them, and then the low bidder will be the low bidder for the entire project. So there's a pro and con there, and I'll work with Sharon as to the best way to go forward on that in the next bidding process.
Okay, well.
It's a good try.
Yeah, it was
As
a
we've
good try.
discussed, they need doing, but I guess they'll get done in the spring.
Correct.
Okay,
One question before we
Sure.
go on that. You said because of the end of the year, Mike, and that's why they didn't want to bid on it. Even if you did it as a bright and early in the spring project, would they look at it then to get their season started, these small projects, as opposed to putting it in with the Glengarry project?
That's a great question, and my crystal ball isn't quite
You don't
that
have that
good.
crystal ball.
I don't,
Okay.
I just don't. The contract, I walked the project with two contractors, and one of the contractors said, yeah, I kind of like this job and this job, but I don't want that one. And the other one said, I'd do these two, but I don't want to touch Oak Island. You know, that's a nightmare project for contractors. And Sharon and I even told them, listen, give us a bid on any one of them. You know, we won't combine them all. We'll take one at a time. Just tell us what your price is. We didn't get a bid even open, that open-ended, so.
All right, thank you.
all right, item 3, 2013 road maintenance program culvert replacement bid.
This one became very confusing as well. As you remember, I thought, that we might even be able to enhance the paving prices and get them down a little bit lower for Glengarry Road if we took the storm sewer work out of the project. Well, come to find out, the underground contractors are busy as well. So we really only got one bid in all the storm sewer work here in the village, and that was replacing some of the cross culverts on Glengarry Road, building a catch basin over for the pathway on McCoy, and doing our large culvert crossing here on Glengarry Road and the other large one on Wolverine Drive. And repairing some catch basins, various locations. The prices were astronomical on the smaller type stuff. The culvert replacement was $120 per foot. I mean, it was just astronomical. Repairing very shallow catch basins were $2,500, and that's the price that we can put in 8-foot deep manholes for. And so it was very obvious that they didn't want to do those things. We did, however, end up with a very reasonable price for the repair of the culvert underneath Glengarry Road and the big one on Wolverine Drive. CI contractor came in with a very reasonable price on that, and we could get those two big projects done before the big paving program. But I would never suggest that council award the all the storm sewer work to CI. The price was just much too high. I would never ask you to do that. However, to compare apples with oranges, a very interesting thing that I tried was I took the CI contracting price and went back into the bids for the paving program. As you know, we bid that storm sewer work out as part of the big paving program. Two of the big pavers had an astronomical price for the storm sewer. The one, Cadillac Asphalt, had a very, very low price. It's a very, $120,000 isn't very low, but a very reasonable price. As a matter of fact, his prices were lower than this new contractor for this rebidding. So what I did, I contacted Cadillac Asphalt and got the name of the contractor who was going to do the sub work out the storm sewer, the big projects, and he said he would be willing to hold those prices and hold the contract himself if council wanted to. So we have two legitimate prices to do this large storm sewer work this fall instead of next spring. I compared those two prices, and Soul Construction it actually came in less costly than the CI contracting. So it was going to be my recommendation to award the contract to Soul Construction for a price of, and I apologize here, ends up being $194,625. And then a little twist was turned on to me by CI Contracting. I never shared any of this with the contractors, of course. And CI Contracting said, you know, we can do it for less if we open cut Glengarry Road. I went, okay. There are a number of reasons why the contractors and several consultants that I consulted with suggested not to take that culvert out, not open cut that, and I'll get into that in a minute, but to slip a new culvert inside the old culvert so we don't touch Glengarry Road. But it intrigued me to find out what the difference in cost might be. CI went back, I met them out here, and they thought that they could save approximately $30,000 if we allowed them to open cut Glengarry Road versus slip a culvert underneath. The biggest reason is the cost of cleaning out that culvert in order to slip the new culvert in is in the range of about $40,000. Amazing. I think my kids could have done that in a weekend, but it's a very, very big project. So if they dug it all out, if they open cut and dug it all out, they didn't have to clean the culvert. They just take it all out with big machinery and set the new one back in. My biggest concern is I have no idea what's under that culvert. And we didn't do any borings down through there. We know, and Ed'll support this, we know that berm is made up of everything the farmers could throw in there, and as well as a great deal of peat. We also know that the existing culvert's been there for 40 years, 50 years, 60 years, 80 years, way before my time, and it's still stable. The ground hasn't settled, the culvert's still there, the walls on both sides are still stable, and therefore, if I didn't have to touch that, I wouldn't have to worry about a new culvert and what we're gonna find and how deep we have to dig down to get a new base underneath that culvert. And so, I have my concerns about open cutting and replacing that big culvert. That being said, I didn't feel it was up to me to make a decision like that. We would have to close Glengarry Road down for approximately a week, reroute traffic. Fortunately, we could do that, both north and south. But if the savings is really only approximately 29, let's see, I apologize.
31, I think.
What did numbers at?
I thought you said the savings.
31,000.
From CI is 31,416.
Yeah, so the savings is only approximately,
That looks like 20.
20,000.
20,000. Yeah, the cost savings is 20,000, because keep in mind that Soul Construction was lower anyway. So I compared Soul's constructions to the cost of the open cutting, and it was really only a $20,380,000 difference. That's not chump change, and so I thought I owed it to council to bring it to you. I'd like you guys to give me some guidance on that, and whether or not we go forward at this time of the year, or whether we repackage everything with a paving program.
You deduct from that savings the cost of patching after, and that's about 5,000.
Correct.
So it drops it to 15,000. You weigh that against closing the road for a week.
Closing the road for a week's kind of a big deal.
I think, I think it is a big
Yeah,
deal.
if that could be tied in, that's the only other thing, is if it could be tied in with the paving project. You know, while they're paving down there, they're working up here, but
Keep in mind that I'm not proposing to close Glengarry Road down at all,
I know.
even during the paving project.
no, we realize that.
Yeah.
Is the simple question, Mike, you're asking, or I guess we're trying to contemplate here, is there more than $20,000 of risk at hand if we slip another culvert inside the other one rather than doing an open cut and not knowing what we're going to find? I mean, is that what I'm hearing in terms of this 20 grand?
Yeah.
Yes.
And
It seems to me that my professional opinion is that it's been there so long, and so is the dam,
Yeah.
that if you start to screw around with it,
boy.
look what happened on South Commerce. All
Oh,
we were gonna
yeah.
do was put in a sidewalk.
Yeah.
And we ended up building a runway for planes.
Right.
Oh, we didn't know that was there, and then the water came in, and all these stuff they had down there, you know. And
I
I
think the
know
risk
it is, I
avoidance
know
is-
it's down
I
there,
think
nothing's
friend here.
stable. I'd be really afraid.
That was,
to-
that was certainly my recommendation,
Yeah.
but again, I didn't want to make that decision. I needed to inform council.
So it sounds like we have a pretty strong consensus here to go at 194
Okay.
with what is it? Sole construction.
Sole construction.
Are you assuming that would be done this year yet?
Yes, the plan here, if council would like to go forward with this, is to replace the culvert on Wolverine Drive first, because that requires pavement to be put over top of it. And therefore, it would be done before the plants close the middle of November. This other project, we don't have any new paving that will be going in, and they'll start that in November, middle of November, and go through probably the middle of December. They'd like the lake to be lowered down, because they don't want water traveling back and forth through that area if they're working in there. And so we're looking for all the work to be done before the first of the year is the plan.
Mike, if we do it that way by inserting a new culvert inside the old one, is there any reason from a safety standpoint that you would have to shut the road down with, you have people working underneath this road, and you have a construction truck, who knows, going over the top of it? I mean, would we still have to close the road down at all?
No, let me back off that a little bit. They have to provide traffic control. They will have a crane on one side or the other side of the road, but the road will not be shut down. They'll be squeezed down to one lane periodically during the process as they try to swing one culvert in and do some work. They're also, to make it easier, they're probably going to lift our bridge off and set it up on the embankment so they can get it both sides a little easier. There's only 8 bolts that hold that bridge down, and then they'll set it back into place. But no, the plan is that Glengarry Road would not have to be shut down. We're not touching the paving on the surface whatsoever, and
Yep.
so.
My concern is when you're starting removing something that's been there how many years, is there gonna be a degradation in the support structure that's there? If you pull this out, is it gonna,
That's
No,
the
that's what
beauty
I'm
on
saying, they're not
this.
doing
We're not
that.
pulling it out.
you're putting the other one inside,
Yeah,
which.
it's a
that's
sleeve
right.
inside.
That's right, it's sleeve
Like
inside,
ground.
that's right. I'm
Mike, are
sorry.
they gonna insert it from the north or
That's right.
from the south?
You know, I thought that they were going to do it all from the north. That's the way I had talked with contractors, hang it over and just let it slide
That's
in
what
on
I
some
thought.
slip boards. The contractors, at least a couple that I've talked to, said no, by lifting the bridge off, they would work from both ends. They would slide one in from one side and the other in
Oh,
from the
in
other
two
side.
pieces.
In 2 pieces, correct.
Okay.
That'd probably
I
be
understand.
easier to handle.
Right.
Okay.
Mike, could you just, this was discussed at the water board, it's more of an aside question. When we put the sluice gates in,
Yes.
say I was on the water board, then I guess that's about 10 years ago, 12 years ago?
About 10, right.
There was for lack of a better word, a side drain where I think that was where we could lower the lake lower than the dam itself. Did we reconstruct that or fill that? I mean, that's no longer available to us, correct?
No.
We filled it, I think, if I remember right.
That's
Okay.
correct.
I just
It was,
wanted
it
to-
was falling apart. It was
Right.
going to be
If we wanna
extremely
lower the lake,
costly
we
to
have to
repair it.
safe
Yeah, that's what I thought. There was a question at the water board, and I didn't want to answer it. I wasn't sure at that time.
Right.
So, okay, thank you.
One other question, I guess, if I may. If we're gonna be grouting around the inner pipe that we're gonna be putting in there, how much weight is that gonna be adding to it? And is there a concern that that might add enough weight to possibly?
It's a very good question.
Awesome.
There's there's about a 1-foot gap all the way around between these culverts. The best guess that we have is that that'll act as a beam. It'll actually be supported all the way from one side to the other. It's not like a big weight right in the middle. So it will be supported on a foundation on both ends and kind of bridge between the two sides. Stranger things have happened, but we're not anticipating that to be a problem. Right now, the existing culvert is 11 feet wide. We're putting one in that's narrower, and so that 11-foot wide will actually act as a big girder back and forth and side to side. Very good question, though.
Mike, just out of curiosity, what liability does this company have if they put it in there and, you know, it should crack or start to drop or sag?
You looking for warranty?
What sort of performance guarantee do we have
Yeah.
here?
some
Yeah,
kind of warranty?
because, you know, I'm a little surprised with whoever does it, but I would think before I would tackle something like that and start fooling around, I'd like to know what is underneath there.
Yeah, based upon the discussions with the contractors, I'm probably going to have a soil drilling company do a boring down 20, 30 feet, just to make sure that we don't have 10 feet of peat right underneath it. But the contractor is not responsible for hidden items. That would, quite frankly, fall under my professional liability insurance and not the contractor.
Maybe it's something we don't want to know.
Yeah, that's right. Blinder. So, yes, the contractor can only be responsible for the work they do. If there are concrete cracks, anything workmanship, any of the materials they use, we've got them for a full year, and they have their liability, of course, their workman's comp and all their professional liability as well. But if 4 or 5 years from now that thing implodes, then that's on my professional insurance.
It seems though that we're using the fact that it's been stable for 60 years as kind of putting us in a comfort zone that we don't
Right.
have to do all this boring, we don't have to do this new analysis. We're gonna do the analysis anyway, and if it comes back, okay, well, now it is stable, we can replace it, put a completely new sleeve in there. You know, it changes the whole, it changes the scope of the discussion entirely. You know, a big part of the discussion and leading towards doing a sleeve inside the existing one was because, well, we don't want to rock the boat. It's been stable for 75 years, whatever, so now we'll let it go. Then, 10 minutes later, well, we're going to do borings and find out anyway.
I don't think I heard a full analysis there. I heard hey, let's make sure there's nothing truly disastrous underneath.
Correct. And that would be in the middle. The sides are already on foundations, but it is, if we ended up with 18 feet of peat directly underneath there, what I would probably do, I wouldn't change anything, but I'd then start adding some steel rods down through to enhance the girder capability of the design. So I don't think I'd change any of the design whatsoever, but I'd add some reinforcing steel along with the concrete.
So in other words, we're kind of sure, but let's be a little bit more sure, but not totally sure. So we'll just kind of hope for the.
Well, I can tell you
I
right,
don't-
I can
don't-
tell
Yep,
you
that's
right now,
civil
I
engineering.
something underneath that road that you would want to build your house on.
I understand that,
I
but
guarantee that.
there seems to
I
be just
know
a
that
total
for a fact.
inconsistency about the level of
About
analysis
22
that we
feet.
want to go through. And that's what makes the decisions difficult.
Yeah, and give you an example. When we do gravity sanitary sewers, we're going 300 feet between manhole and manhole. We do soil borings about every 300 feet to just give us some idea. But between those 300-foot areas, we have no concept what's there. And nobody in their right mind would do a soil boring every 10 feet along this pathway. So it's a professional judgment, it's you do a due diligence, but you just can't cover every contingency.
I think for the small cost of, compared to the overall project of doing soil boring, I think
You
it's
bet.
better be safe than sorry.
You bet.
Well,
You-
go ahead, Pat.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not trying to, go ahead, Ron, I'll talk later.
I was just gonna say, it sounds like we have a pretty good consensus here, though, to proceed with sole contracting at $194,625. And I was going to entertain a motion to award the major culvert repair contract to Sole Construction at $194,625.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Motion Sinkowitz, second Scott. Further discussion? Pat?
Yeah, that was what I was gonna ask relative to who is Soul Construction? Are they a local company? Have you dealt with them before? What other work have they done? Do they have a good reputation, et cetera, et cetera?
They're a very large contractor, and they do very large work. That's why Cadillac Asphalt, which is the premium type asphalt company in this part of the state, that's why they used Soul Construction, because they knew Cadillac would have been responsible. They would have held their subcontractor responsible. So I am very comfortable with Soul Construction.
And they can start the project, what is your proposed starting time for the project?
We're
You said
looking
they-
for a pre-construction meeting next week if council proceeds, and they would start the week after that.
As long as they can mobilize that fast, I mean.
Right.
And these are out of existing major road funds.
Yeah, this is
Yes.
out of major road.
Correct.
But we have to get the soil boring done then.
That's fairly
That's
easy.
immaterial, okay.
Right.
All right, seeing no further discussion, let's get a roll call vote.
Sinkwitz.
Yes.
McGee.
Yes.
Maggie.
Yes.
Bezeki.
Yes.
Humble.
Yes.
Scott.
Yes.
Yes.
one other.
All right, thank you, council. But the Powell Show is not yet done.
Oh, boy.
Building repair. Mike, can we get you a stool over there or something?
No, I'm doing just fine, thank you. This is made up of a number of items. It's a cost that I figured to accomplish several things that council's been looking to do and the administration's been looking to do. Those of you that have needed to or wanted to walk the handicap ramp coming up from the parking lot to the first floor know that it has been, we've probably patched it every year for the last 6 or 7 years using all kinds of modern, different patchwork, epoxy and everything else. And the location of where that railing attaches to it was just done improperly into a 4-inch slab. So the railing just, it wasn't being held properly into that slab. So it's breaking apart. As part of a number of concrete projects here in the village, one of which is a slab, the other one is the slab in the, need to bring it up, but in the weed harvester bay, and another apron in front of the DPW building is all breaking up. And then there was the potential of a exercise circuit there in Vita Trail. We were looking to maybe put all the concrete together. Instead of that, we then talked with a number of contractors to maybe do some of the work this fall. Again, they were very busy and we were getting some high prices. So the DPW stabilized the railing as much as they can, and it was my recommendation that we put out for bids for all the concrete work that we had available for first thing in the spring instead of this fall. And then possibly the Vita Trail exercise court might be on the table then as well, and we can bid it all together. The number one in my scope there was to just do the engineering for replacing that handicap ramp. Item number two is a topographic survey that the architect needed in order to get the elevations, the grades, and the different steps all the way around the building, distances out to pavement, things like that, so that he could design the improvements for your building. That was the $550. To design and bid the floor slab in the last bay of the DPW building and the entrance that's breaking apart in front of the DPW, we're at $300 to put that out. And then if and when we do the slab on the Vita Trail area, that was $785. It needs some topo and some staking and layout, and then bidding that one out as well. So those are my costs to be able to provide those services to council on any one of those particular jobs.
Mike, are these, the slab in particular in the harvester bay, et cetera, those are going to be concrete as well as the ramp?
Those will all be concrete.
Everything here is concrete, there's no asphalt?
Everything is concrete.
Okay.
So we would be putting this all together, bidding it, and it would be done in the spring.
Correct.
What is the slab you're talking about at the Vita Trail? Parking or?
I'll let Sharon discuss that.
That is the potential exercise equipment that we're talking about.
Oh, you mean
putting in
slab
the-
for where each one goes?
Well, one large slab where all the stations would go.
So, wait, okay, I'm missing something. Are all the equipment gonna be in one location? Or are they gonna be scattered around the trail?
Right now, the thought is that they would be in one location.
Okay, so council consensus to go ahead, bid it in the spring, and we'll get it when we get back? Okay, I don't think we need a motion there then.
No, we don't, but number 4, I mean, the 1, 2, and 3 are ongoing and if not fully funded, the understanding is they are all gonna be completed soon. They're all have been started. That's not the case with number 4. Are we in fact planning on doing that? Has Parks and Rec would make the recommendation to do that?
I've met with 2 different companies. I'm actually meeting with another company tomorrow, so things are underway to bring them forward. We just don't have a final plan for that yet.
But you feel confident throwing this all in one? We're not gonna separate these. It's gonna be one.
We would bid it as one
Yeah.
Wolverine Lake concrete.
That park
repair
has been
spring.
ongoing for a couple, 3 years now.
I'm good with that approach.
I am too.
I'm too.
Yep.
Let it be so. Okay, number 5, handicap ramp repair.
Did there need to be a motion
Yeah,
on
to-
Oh, did,
For the engineering cost?
on the engineering costs?
oh, okay.
Is this going to general funds, Mike, or is this?
Yes.
I'll make the motion that we approve the expenditures as described here against utilizing general funds for the engineering
Support.
work done.
Do we have a total not to exceed here? Got some miscellaneous in there.
Well, my
As
fees
presented.
are hard quotes, so.
As presented, then.
There would be.
Okay,
no-
as
Well, except for the miscellaneous on there, so what should we add on
Well,
to
that
that?
would, boy, $20, you know, something like that for
All
just,
right.
just the cost of the prints.
1385.
You want to add it up?
You got
23.
Just so you
557
presented.
and 3, right?
It's all presented on here.
As presented. Let's go with as presented. We've got the cost right there.
Okay.
Okay, so, sorry, we had a motion in a second. I don't know that I captured who we had it from. So we had motion Sinkowitz, second,
No, motion, Gumbo, second.
motion
Second,
Cumbo,
yeah,
second
yeah, there we
Sinkowitz.
go.
Thank you.
You got it.
Further discussion on the motion? Roll call vote? Yes.
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 Item number 5 is a very simple item. It's just for the council's knowledge, and it would go in the file. It is my professional judgment that the railing it will be structurally sound for what it is meant to be used for, protecting the people on the handicap ramp, so it didn't have to be done this fall. It allows us to be done in the spring. That's all that letter was for.
Okay. Any questions there?
Yeah, spell it Harvester 4 slab, not slap.
Oh, yeah. Good point.
There's some slaps to be handed out on the
Yeah.
harvester front, but that's a
Right.
different. Okay, number 6, HG starter pay request in the amount of $85.30.
This is somewhat complicated, but if you take a look at my second, and I apologize, do you guys
Yes.
have that?
Yep,
Yep.
Thank you.
sure do.
Mr. Sarter Paving is a contractor, local contractor. He's based in Walled Lake, and the village uses him for miscellaneous stuff that doesn't make sense to go out for bids for. And so there were a number of items that were done at the, under my supervision with the knowledge of administration and with Andy in the DPW. And you can see where all these items are. The majority of the center of these items are Lakeview Paving. When Lakeview Paving was bid out, it was bid out for just straight repair and replacement of the roadway and overlaying of the roadway on Lakeview. When it was in the process, I had asked them to do some paving outside of the edge of the road to create some spillways, things like that. And they refused to do it because legally they didn't have to. They were on a production, they had a paving machine, and whenever they had to do anything other than just pave behind a paving machine, they got very upset at me and refused to do it. And I didn't have any authority because it wasn't part of their contract. When they left, it was completed, we experienced erosion down off of certain sections of Lakeview, not Lakeview, but the side streets at McCoy, where the water left the road and poured down into the ditch line along McCoy. And we eroded the gravel shoulders that were there. We had actually built new gravel shoulders and they were eroded. So to prevent that from happening, we had Harold Sarter Company, Sarter Paving, come in and actually put paved spillways in that carries that water off the roadway there out in the road right-of-way of McCoy at each one of those roads. So these identify those areas as well, a couple ponded areas on McCoy itself. We also repaired an area of the pathway on Wolverine Drive between Penny Lake and South Commerce Road. There was an area that actually dipped by about 6 inches, and Andy and I felt that that was a spot where somebody riding the bike could actually be thrown off of the pathway. So we had him take that out. And there was an area on the pathway just on the north end of our boardwalk as you approach Del Monte. There was a major, major drop in the asphalt at that spot, and he came in and repaired that. That was the item number 11, if you can read down there. Then he came back in and actually repaired a section of Canal Street that the sanitary sewer contractor had not repaired. His price was going to be less than getting his contractor back in and do it, and so I had Harold Sarter do that, and we saved a little bit of money there. That was a unit price contract for even the sewer contractor to come back up. So long and short of it, Harold Sarter came in and cleaned up a number of paving issues here in the village, and it's my recommendation that we pay him in the amount of $8,530.
Okay, and it looks like we've gone through this invoice to indicate which budget items these should come out of. So Wolverine Drive is major road. We have a bunch of things that are in Lakeview paving project, which is minor road. Then Benstein Bridge repair, Parks and Rec, and the bit of sewer restoration is out of that project.
Mike, that number 11, is that on Benstein Bridge repair, is that replacing wood or is that asphalt work?
No, that was asphalt work.
Okay.
The asphalt actually collapsed in.
No, I just saw
Right.
4x8s or 1x6s.
Oh, that was a 4x8 section that
Okay,
was
all right.
repaired there, yes.
Thank you.
All right, do I hear a motion to approve the payment of the invoice to HG Starter in the amount of $8,530?
So moved.
Support.
Motion Nagy, second Nedrow, out of budgeted funds as presented. Further discussion?
I just have a question. Is this something in the long term that could be categorized as possible core services of DPW? These really, really minor repairs, or is that outside the scope of their expertise?
Well, I think they would need paving equipment, asphalt equipment to do it.
Mm-hmm.
This is all hot mix asphalt. They do a great job of cold patching, the holes in the roads, and they do that. Nobody else does that in the village. But when you mix hot asphalt, you need it in quantities that you can bring to the site and still remain at 300 degrees. You have to be able to place it, roll it, and so it'd be difficult. They have done it, but they've rented the machinery to do it.
Okay, thank you.
Seeing no further discussion, roll call vote.
Maggie?
Yes.
Kaznecki?
Yes.
Humble?
Yes.
Stock?
Yes.
Nedrow?
Yes.
Sinkowitz?
Yes.
McGee?
Yes.
Thank you, council. We're almost done.
Oh, so you think there's two more items. 2013 crack ceiling.
This is very, very straightforward. We bid out the crack sealing on, throughout the village. We always start on the new roadways first and go towards the older ones. We were provided a budget to stay within for major and minor roads. We made sure the contractor stayed right within those budgeted funds. As a matter of fact, they went over by about $300, and I said, tough, you're not going to be paid for that. And they responded back and said, okay, we'll cap right at your budget, and so that's what was done this year. So I recommend that we pay Michigan Joint Sealing for a total of,
$10,200.03.
yes, thank you.
Do I hear a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Support.
So, motion Sinkowitz, second Nagy, to pay Michigan Joint Sealing $10,203 for the fall 2013 crack sealing. Further discussion?
Just a question, we do split it between the 7,003 cents out of major and the balance out of the minor road fund?
Flip it around. It's 3,200 major and 7,000 local.
Yeah, you're right, 3,200 on the major, yeah, thank you.
Roll call vote?
Kaznecki?
Yes.
Humble?
Yes.
Stock?
Yes.
Nedrow?
Yes.
Sinkowitz?
Yes.
McGee?
Yes.
Maggie?
Yes.
All right. The final item of the
Final item, that's correct. This is
Mike
a
Powell
little bit-
Marathon.
This is a little tricky as well, and we've never had to do this before. We've experienced a number of cracks and in the the inline roller skating arena that we have in the village, the tennis courts, and the basketball area. What's tricky about patching these things, the inline roller blades are really only about a 1/4 inch they hit the pavement. And these cracks are about a half-inch wide. And so we were very concerned, Sharon was very concerned that if somebody just turned just right, their skate would drop right down in the crack and we'd end up with somebody falling. So we asked the contractor that was low bid on our crack sealing program to give us a price and give us recommendations on how to patch these items. I met out there with them, and he and I were both very concerned that hot tar just will not cut it in the roller rink, because on a hot day, those wheels would drop right down in there. We actually designed that with a harder asphalt than normal, because those roller blades on a hot day just dig up the asphalt. So he went to his suppliers and he found a supplier that provides a material for industrial flooring. And so it's a gray to white product, and he puts it in through, he cleans out all the cracks, and then he places that in those cracks, and it turns hard like concrete, but still with some flexibility to be able to move with the asphalt on both sides. So he told me that his price had to be $3.55 per lineal foot, because the material is $70 a gallon. And so this was his and my best chance of filling those cracks and have it withhold the pounding it would have on the rollerblade. In the tennis courts, it's not quite as critical, and it's certainly not as critical on the basketball courts. What I didn't suggest, however, that we just fill it with pavement filler, just hot mix asphalt, because if you've seen, they actually fill it and then they spread it wide. And that hot mix asphalt in the summertime heats up just like asphalt does, and it actually becomes a little slippery on the surface. I'm a bike rider, motorcycle rider, as you guys know, and it's very critical that we not turn sharp on patched roadways, because that asphalt or that hot tar actually slips underneath my bike. And it's much like playing tennis, stopping on those things. Your tennis shoes would slip on it a little bit, and certainly on the tennis courts the same way. And so I'm suggesting we use that same type patchwork on all the recreation courts that we have instead of hot tar.
So this sort of patching is really designed to give us a completely smooth surface, not the sort of slightly, you
That is correct.
You get a slight bump there, not a big deal unless a tennis ball hits it and then it goes at a different angle.
That's correct, or a inline
Basketball,
skate
yeah.
you're trying to stop or move on it, that's correct.
Mike, I can't remember the name of the product, but it was a product, it was a caulk product that was made especially for asphalt. I don't know whether Dow made it or whether the other caulking manufacturers did it, but it came in a quart tube, and that you put it in, it basically was made to fill cracks in asphalt. It would expand and contract with the asphalt. Okay, so it just blended right in. It's not pouring something out of a bucket, okay?
Yes, and I actually
can't remember the name of
researched
the
that.
product.
And
2000.
they come in quart sizes, but we would have needed like 100 tubes and one guy going out there trying to squirt it in all these joints. And so I dealt with a pavement contractor, a seal coat contractor that actually lives in the village. He's an expert at it. Both he and Michigan Joint Sealing agreed that that would not be the right way to go. They both did independent research.
Okay.
And so this is what they suggested.
They don't have to put any backer rod or anything in there? They
No,
just- okay.
no, it actually firms up hard and adheres to the sides of the cracks.
So this product,
Go ahead.
it allows for expansion in the summertime, but it doesn't soften like a,
That is correct. Yeah.
So, I don't think we've budgeted for this level of repair on those courts, but I thought I'd
Mr. President, we did not specifically. However, it looks like we're not going to be doing certain things in the Park and Recreation improvement line item. We were going to, originally, what was anticipated were some LED lights on our signs and some new banners advertising some of the new events, like the Labor Day Walk and I think the garage sale. I thought I read in the Park and Rec minutes that those have been tabled or are done for, at least for the time being. So we can probably fit it within there.
Okay, well, I'd really like to see us take care of those courts.
Yeah,
I mean, a lot of people
it's
use
just gonna
them.
get worse.
it's a long way from 43 cents a linear foot to
Oh, it
350
is.
plus.
Absolutely.
And just in terms of total cost here, your estimate is 838 linear feet of cracks, 355 per linear foot is the estimate. Are we best going with a not to exceed of like 3,550 to account for up to 1,000 or?
It may. We wheeled out all the cracks we thought needed to be filled, but it never hurts. They only get paid by the lineal foot anyway, so if council were to do that, you'd only be spending what they actually applied anyway.
Okay, yeah, I just assume we don't get to the, to the last corner of the court and like, oop, we're out of feet. Do I hear a motion to approve the repair of the court cracks with a contract to Michigan Joint Sealing at $3.55 per linear foot, not to exceed $3,550?
So moved.
Motion Nagy, second Scott. Further discussion? Roll call vote?
Trumbull.
Yes.
Scott?
Yes?
Metro?
Yes.
Sigler?
Yes.
McKee?
Yes.
Maggie?
Yes.
President?
Yes.
Council, I'm sorry it took so long. Does anyone have any questions for me before I sit down?
Going once, going twice.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
No,
Mike.
it's a lot of good work getting done around the village. Okay. Park and Rec Board. Park and Rec recommends council reappoint Darlene Perigo to the board with a term expiring December 31st, 2015. Pam,
Do we
anything to
know,
add?
is this the first time that she's being reappointed?
I doubt
No,
it.
don't think so.
So she's,
She's been on the board a long time. I think this is the first time she's had to be reappointed for having missed meetings.
oh, that's what I asked.
Yeah.
First time.
Yep.
She's, she may have missed, some meetings, but generally she's there and she does a lot of work. And she volunteers a lot.
She has a long history with the board and does a lot of work there, so I'm inclined to say yes.
Oh, yeah, summer festival and et cetera, she's always there.
Hmm?
I said the summer festival and other areas.
Oh, yeah.
She's always
Oh,
involved.
she's always
yeah.
there. She's always there. And we
Plenty of
recently
lunch, I've
lost
seen her.
2,
Mhm.
Jennifer and Alma.
Yep. So do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion to reinstate Darlene Perigo.
I'll
to
second.
Parks and Recreation Board. It
Motion.
doesn't have a date on it. I don't know whether it was that.
Yeah, yes, it does.
Yeah, it does, December 31st,
December 31st,
2015.
2015.
Oh, I'm looking on here, okay.
Motion Sinkwit, second Kaznecky. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, Park and Rec. Water Management Board
No, how about
recommends.
Water Management
Oh,
Board?
sorry,
Water
Water Management Board. Park and Rec, done. Water Management Board recommends council reappoint Richardson, Vogel, and Solomon with terms expiring December 31st, 2015, and Rodi with a term expiring December 31st, 2014.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion, but first I just want to make a quick comment. I feel that for some reason, the Water Management Board, their attendance record for the last couple of years has been pretty poor. If you recall, 2 years ago, when we had some of the worst weeds in the lake that we've ever had, they didn't have a meeting from like May to September. And this year, they've had 4 people that technically missed enough meetings where they had to be done. And I'm also concerned that, the council liaison and spokesperson for the Water Management Board, John Scott, is emailing out false information to residents. And I think we need, as a council, to look at this board and find out what the problems are that these things keep reoccurring. 2 years in a row, I mean, they have a board of 7, and then, half the time they don't have enough to have a meeting, and they just barely had enough to pass all their information, or their votes last for 4. But I think there's some serious concerns on that board that need to be looked at. And I don't know if we wanted to address it to the administrative committee and bring this back at another meeting, but I'm not comfortable with reinstating, and I believe Susan's,
Sue Solomon?
Solomon, this might be the second time she's being reinstated. So what kind of commitment is that? If you volunteer for something, and then you're not there 25% of the time?
Well, if I can make a comment,
Aye. thought you
I
might.
think you knew I was going to.
Yeah.
I'd be more than happy to take Mr. Sinkowitz up on the challenge of not having meetings from May until September, or whatever information that you're throwing out about that, Ed, and have that information brought back to the next council meeting. I think that's totally inaccurate. As far as I can remember, there were 2 meetings canceled last year. You're making the implication of
It's true.
May, June, July, September.
I think, when we talked about it at that meeting, I was under the impression there was three months during the summer that there was not a quorum.
Well, not a quorum or not a meeting? There was once that I remember that there was not a quorum, and only once. So let's get the facts on the table rather than just use memory. Relative to Sue, she had a back surgery issue, and that's one of the reasons that she missed 3 meetings in a row. She was literally laid up with a back injury. So, however the council wants to handle this, I think the Water Management Board looked at itself, had a direct discussion about this issue. We unfortunately lost a member, and we're going to have a new member join as we're taking control of the number of meetings that people were not in attendance at. We do expect, I think everybody on the board is now in agreement that we really need to be at every meeting. So, but I would really seriously question the number of meetings that you stated, Ed.
Okay.
The second thing I would like is a clearer explanation of what you think this gentleman, Mr. Scott, is doing that is wrong and out of the context of my responsibilities at the Water Management Board, and the false information you just indicated that I'm spreading to the public.
Well, it's in your email right here, John. We've been discussing catfish for 2 years.
Correct.
It's been going on back and forth, and the word sterilization has never come up in one conversation. And you reported here to, hi Scott, blah, 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 we're gonna currently stock a game fish, which you're stretching the imagination, and it's a limited number of sterilized fish, 300.
That's
That
correct.
is wrong.
That's correct. No, that's not wrong. That's what the proposal is, if you go down a little bit further.
You can't get sterilized fish.
Well, I'm sorry, it's something I don't know if Sharon had a chance to talk with our stockers at all. I asked
So,
if that was a
at this
possibility.
point, we're moving on to fish
I agree.
stocking. Let's,
Yeah.
let's,
But-
let's pull, let's pull fish
I-
stocking to that item. Let's just concentrate on board attendance
Well, it's a
here.
little, I think it's a little out of the context of a meeting of council for one member of council to tell the other member of council that I am putting into the hands of the general public misinformation. And let us go over why the water board is making this recommendation. And then we'll maybe find out who has the misinformation.
Okay, let's hold that one till we get to
Okay.
fish stocking. But in terms of attendance, I do share a bit of Ed's concern in
I
that there's
don't
been
disagree. Yeah.
poor attendance there. If,
Well, how, I don't know how you do it. I mean, I remember the old board, the old guard, which John was part of, they did I don't know, what you guys still do the SESHI testing and the oxygen
Well,
testing and all that?
Yeah.
You still do that as much as you used to?
This year, we did not do it as much as
Okay,
we do.
so-
We had spread that program out beginning last year to do less and less.
Whatever, but
Yeah.
I just think it's beneficial for this community to have that board functioning on all cylinders, and currently it's not.
Yeah,
I think it's a little unfair to focus just on the Water Management Board in terms of the level, our dependence on, and then the lack of or maybe an inadequate level of volunteerism community-wide. And I think the focus just on attendance of the Water Board members is a little bit unfair. I feel like they're being unfairly targeted in that regard.
Yeah,
They are a very
Well,
important
well,
board, for sure.
in all fairness, we do have 3 people who need to be reappointed because they missed more.
No, I understand that, but I mean,
meetings
it's,
right before.
that's, the lack of volunteerism community-wide, I think is apparent. We have a hard time,
Right, I think there's a broader issue in terms of water board specific. Well, let me let you finish and then.
I think we're in agreement. There is a broader issue, and that's the point I'm trying to make, is that there is a broad issue in terms of maybe village or council outreach to generate interest or more volunteers, because so much of what we do is volunteer. I mean, you know, honestly, even the council person, maybe not technically, but virtually. And, you know, I want to just not, I want to take the discussion, I don't want the discussion to fall just on water board. That's what I'm saying. I think it is a broader issue.
I think relative to the water board, I was in attendance at the last water board meeting, and it was discussed among all the parties who had an issue problem, and, you know, they were basically asked, can you make sure that you attend? I mean, would you be willing to be reappointed, but you have to make the commitment to attend, and I think everybody there agreed that they were lax in their duties and that they would do their damnedest, to make sure they attend the water break meetings, okay? I mean, Sue had an issue, but, you know, Scott Vogel was a new member of the water board, and he was lax, and he's, you know, they all agreed that they want to be reappointed and they will be in attendance as required, okay? And Paul had to resign just because of his duties with the fire department, okay?
Right.
But we had a new member coming on board, so I think they know they were in the wrong, and even some of the past boards that I've sat on and as a liaison, nobody really enforced the attendance, okay? But I think there's something now that's being enforced, and people realize you're volunteering. If you want to be in attendance, I mean, you have to volunteer. You have to be here every time you have a meeting. You just can't, well, I think I'll go this month. I'll not show up next month. I think everybody who's there, at least on a water board, has agreed that they will be in attendance.
And they did that individually.
Yeah, not as a whole.
We asked each member individually, and we were renominating that they make an individual commitment before they decide whether they're going to volunteer again. And again, we lost Paul
Yeah.
because he can't.
And-
He's on a
and, you
swing
know,
shift for a fire
that-
department, so.
That happens. I mean,
Yeah, it
sometimes the
does happen.
schedules just don't work out.
And to Ron's point, Park and Rec lost 2 members for that very same reason.
Yeah.
And with regard to Sue in particular, she's got a long history with that board, has been a pretty good member over a long period of time. She had a
15
specific
years,
health
I
issue.
think.
I think that's
Yeah,
something we
for a
can
long time.
recognize and work on. Well, I'm heartened to hear that they will take it seriously, but it is serious. I mean,
Sure.
believe me, if I weren't into showing up for meetings, I would still be out in Oregon swilling wine and sitting in hot tubs. I was on vacation till
No
till
comment.
today. Okay. Do I hear a motion to reappoint Richardson, Vogel, and Solomon with terms expiring December 31st, 2015, and Rodi with a term expiring December 31st, 2014?
I'll make
So
that
moved.
motion.
Motion Nagy, second Nedrow. Further discussion? I would really not like to see anybody back before us for a reappointment in their terms. So,
Now, are we still going to look into this, or are we just going to, are we just, this is it? We're just going to vote yes or no and see what happens?
So, on this specific motion,
Okay.
we have that before us. Before we go on to the other, we can have further discussion about attendance
Well,
overall.
I think what I was saying, can we take this commitment concern, community-wide, all, encompassing all the boards, and take that to admin to discuss, you know, maybe changing the expectations or being more clear about what
I would
is
certainly
expected.
entertain a motion to that effect.
Okay, that's what, so
Yeah,
that
that's
should,
what I'm getting at, and I'm not trying to make one board any more important than the others, but I look at planning and the water management board as two of the two that have the biggest impact on the residents of this community. And one of them has just had for whatever reason, a very poor track record. And I think we need to fix that.
I
or
agree.
find out
With that, I agree. Can we make that motion ahead of this or subsequent to this one?
Let's just do this one, and then we can make that
All
motion.
right.
All right.
So on the motion to reappoint, any further discussion on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries. Do I hear a motion to send the issue of board attendance overall to the admin committee?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Motion Cumbo, second Sinkowitz. Further discussion on that one? No further discussion, but I will note that we've occasionally gone through, peaks and troughs of attendance and participation. One thing that has occasionally worked a bit is, we'll try for a volunteer day or some sort of focused outreach program to try to bring new people in, especially as, we've had some turnover in residents. Might be something worth investing in.
Yeah, one thing I'd like to say is that on planning, we've had numerous people miss meetings this year. There's things that come up in people's lives, and you can't make every single meeting every single time, obviously. So maybe the policy needs to be looked at and revisited. Maybe we need to look at excused absences versus unexcused. Maybe that's something that can be thought about.
I think that's a good point.
I think that's worth looking at too.
Yeah,
People are gonna have
health
business
issues,
committees, people are gonna have
obviously.
health issues.
Yeah.
I mean, there's times that people can't make council meetings. We all
Right.
try, but there's certain things that come up, and we excuse each other. And there's reasons why it's excused.
And I
So
think
that might be a
my
way to look at
concern was
it.
that there was so many.
Right, I agree, we've had a nice
Half of the
streak here.
board.
Yeah.
And the other thing is to look at how many times that it does prevent a quorum from happening.
Yeah,
I know
that's
planning, we haven't had an issue maybe once this year. I don't think we have though. But, that's another avenue to look at, how many times we've missed quorums because of absenteeism. So,
And I think that ought to be brought back to the council on behalf of the water board, so we can have in the record exactly what did occur over the last couple of years.
Sure.
So if the administrator could do that, I think that's important.
I think we will want accurate attendance numbers
Absolutely.
when we look at that issue.
Of course.
Okay, so we've got that motion to send it to admin. Any further discussion on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Water Management Board recommends council appoint David Dumont, and we promise you won't be sorry, to the board to fill a vacancy for a term expiring December 31st, 2014.
I make that motion to,
So I hear a motion, Sinkowitz. Do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
Seconded by Mr. Scott. Mr. Scott, our liaison, would you care to do an introduction?
I'd love to introduce David Bill Dumont. We had a great time at the board. For those that haven't noticed in the audiences, Mr. Dumont has been, I think, at 2 council meetings, could be more, I'm not sure. I've seen him at planning, I believe. You've been in almost every board, if I'm not mistaken. He might very well have been at zoning also. He has the kind of drive and intent you love to see, and that's somebody coming out and attending various meetings to better understand what is going on. And we're fortunate enough to have David come aboard and put his application into the water board. And I do mean fortunate enough. David's a plumber. He has 15 years' experience, 5.5 years in apprenticeship, worked on large programs, including waste treatment plants and et cetera. So we are going to tap his expertise on our subcommittee of laminar aeration and augmentation down the canals, and hook him up with a couple people that we have in that subcommittee to find a way to move water down the canals. So with that, I introduce David Dumont.
Further discussion, questions, council?
It's nice to see some young faces.
Yeah.
yeah.
No lack of
Age-
plug pipes that may need hooking up. And I would,
Yeah, we'll wear them.
Next year you'll have gray hair and no hair.
all right, well, if, sounds like we're ready to move on to a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Welcome aboard, David.
Thank you.
Come on up and we'll swear you,
Yeah,
we'll
you gotta
swear
be
you
sworn
in.
Oh.
Then later, everybody will swear at you.
I'm
It'll be-
sorry. Yeah.
Would you raise your right hand and repeat after me? I do solemnly swear
I do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of this state,
and the Constitution of this state,
and that I will faithfully perform the duties
and that I will faithfully perform the duties
of Water Management Board
of Water Management Board
in and for the Village of Wolverine Lake,
in and for this village of Wolverine Lake,
County of Oakland,
County of Oakland,
State of Michigan,
State of Michigan,
according to the best of my ability, so help me God. According to the
according
best.
to the best of my abilities,
So-
so help me God.
Thank you.
David, did you want to introduce
Could I-
the
Let's get a signature first, then
I'd be
introduction.
glad to,
Yeah.
and I'd like to not only introduce Janice, that is my girlfriend and fiance, and I want to thank her for her patience today, for sitting through everything she has had to, being that she's
Yes, just a coffee, there was no
involved.
coffee, I'll take
I
one.
love
Oh, we'll
her
get
very
her.
much.
Oh, sorry, oh, we can have it. You don't want it?
Just have to get her
Oh, come on, who
strawberry
wouldn't want an
light,
hour of
right?
paving project?
Thanks, Chief.
I'll be here
Thank
at
you
least
very
every
much.
few months.
Did you want it? I got one. Thank you much.
Welcome aboard, bud.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Maybe you can get your fiancée to volunteer.
Oh, wow. Holy crap.
Dinner.
Does this look good on the camera there?
And I know they could have.
Make noise on the microphone too, so watch it.
A reminder to all, open mics, open mics. Hot mic, hot mic.
I only get people on
Thank you. I'll give you something.
This is Mike Eaton. Who's here?
Mike leaves, he starts passing out the candy.
Yeah, I'm getting his briefcase, not mine.
Okay, we have about 4 minutes till our second call, but
Might want to wait.
Not want to wait.
yeah, we've got fish stocking, so
Well, the second
Let me
call
make-
early.
Do it early.
4 minutes, 3 minutes early?
shall we go with second call now?
Yeah,
Mhm.
live dangerously. On the edge.
Um,
Till 9:30?
well, we're not actually open to second call yet, so. So here's my other thought on this, though, is that we have a lot of audience members who want to talk on fish stocking. So maybe we can have a little bit of preliminary discussion and then talk about if we want to break for second call to the public at that point. Because,
I will let it up to your discretion.
so
You're the man with the gavel.
here's what I'd like to propose on fish stocking, because there's been a lot of information back and forth. There was a flurry of emails. We have the fish study that was done. The preliminary fish study is out there. There's about a 14-page email exchange from like 2011. And I feel on all of this, there's been some disconnect between Water Board and Council as far as, what they want, where they want to go, where we are, what's in the actual recommendations that are versus what I hear people saying. And what I really wanted to do tonight is propose that we take this to our October work session, do a joint session with Water Management Board, put fish stocking on it, look all the way through the issue of channel cats, through the fish survey that was done in 2012, what was in there, and get everybody back on the same page, at least as far as what the facts are before us, because that's the part that concerns me the
You won't have time to
most.
stock the fish then.
I think we will have time if we come out of there. We do it as a special session, not a work session, so that we can, if we want, we can approve, we can make a decision at the end of it, but, which we could always do in any work session anyways, but we call it a special session, so people understand we'll make a decision at the end of it. But we could talk fish stocking for 2 hours tonight, and I think we would have a lot of conflicting facts before us. What I'd really like to do is have the administrator collect up sort of the fish stocking facts that we have before us, get everybody in the same room together, get the water board together,
What
and
date would
talk
that
about
be?
that. It would be the 4th Wednesday of the month, so October, what is that, 23rd?
23rd, yes.
I think I'm gonna be out of town. I come back on the Thursday. I'll have to check.
23rd? The 23rd?
The 23rd, yep.
Well, I don't know, it's on our agenda. Let's see where we get and how far we get along.
I tend to agree with Mr. McGee that it should be, there's a lot of pluses and minuses, and you hear a lot of comments, pro and con, and I think if the Water Management Board was there, who made the recommendation, and I don't know, even if you could get our DNR guy down here, I mean, he's the guy who made some of the
I'm-
recommendations that we had at this special session to discuss it as a joint committee?
Let me propose a second possible date, because I know Ed has a long history with fish stocking, was one of the people involved in getting the program set up. We have 5 Wednesdays this month. The recommendation that we got was for sterilized catfish. They're not available from the fishery anyways, so we would have nothing in particular that we could proceed with tonight. Let's go for October 30th, the 5th Wednesday of the month.
I guess whatever date you pick, council will have to agree on, but my concern is that people came here, wrote letters, and want to talk about it tonight. And if sterilized catfish are not available, then catfish are out of the picture. Last year, catfish were out of the picture. We voted against it. It's brought up again this year. And then we get in an email here that says that it's sterilized. There's never been the word sterilized brought up at any council meeting, and I've attended them all, about sterilized fish. And the whole thing about this is where it confuses me is that we have 3 major predator fish in the lake: pike, northern pike, walleye, and bass. Now, Water Management Board wants to put another predator in.
And there's a
But it's a-
specific reason for that.
I don't, you'll get your turn. And it's just basically, it's another predator fish. But the predator fish they're putting in is a fish that has no consideration in the DNR. It's not revered. There is no season on them. They grow quickly. They're a bottom feeder, so that the eggs that bass and pike that lay on the bottom can be consumed by them and other bottom feeders like carp. And even at the meeting I attended, that the last one was that the gentleman got up and whoever he was with the weed said that our biggest problem is it's the starry stonewort and cara that protect the little fish. They hide in there and the big fish can't get them. And my whole argument is, why put something in the lake that we can never get rid of, that could someday maybe overtake the lake? People don't want to eat them. They don't want to catch them. They're not an advantage. Put in more walleye or more feeder fish. But just to put in channel cats because they're a predator, we have the predators in the lake now. And to put in the 4th predator that is a fish that is not revered by the DNR, is not revered by most fishermen. And sure, there's 5 states that they're game fishing. They're all below the Mason-Dixon line. So what does that tell you?
Wow.
It's just, my whole point is that, you know, it's the, you know, and I take a special interest in this, and I know you sometimes think I'm going overboard, but I started this thing 20 years ago. And I think the lake has turned out exceptionally well, and I'm very proud of the fact that I put that together and made it go the way it is. And that's why I'm so adamant about not putting in a fish that is detrimental to the lake. But again, if you want to make them, you know, you have people here that wanted to talk about it. I know you got a lot of emails. We had 12 or 14 against catfish at last year's meeting, so if you want to do it on the 5th, let's go for it.
Okay, so let me have a couple words, and then I'll go to Mr. Scott. I'm not particularly pro or anti channel catfish. I mean, I've been places where they have been. I have a grandfather who had a pond that was stocked full of catfish and fish. I have a lot of concerns about introducing a new species to any lake without a lot of thought and a lot of research. And I don't know that I've seen in the stuff that's come before me a case strong enough to make the case for putting a new species in. I'm not saying that information isn't in there. That's kind of why I would like us to have a joint meeting with Water Board, because this keeps coming up and it keeps coming back, and I feel like I'm missing something in the back record. When I look at the recommendation that we had from the fishery survey, what I see is a recommendation that we probably stock walleye every other year, and that's about it. So I kind of feel like I'm missing a chunk of information. There's been a lot of information going back and forward, and that's really why I would like us to take a fairly good, I suspect it'll be fairly long work session, make sure that we have everybody there. We've got people who care about this issue. They're obviously here tonight, and I'll make sure everybody gets a chance to speak in second call. and get on the record one way or the other. But I don't feel like, I feel like there's missing communication, there's missing information. We don't have the lineup of facts. I'm missing something here. And
there's
that's
a
why
lot-
I want to go
There's
back
a lot of wrong
and talk
information
with-
going out, too.
Well,
over the
let's, why don't we
So-
give me as a member of the water board, let me stitch together some of your misinformation, maybe we can bring you up to speed. And as far as channel cats, I think the real question that we continue to approach the DNR with is, what are our alternatives? As everybody who has received a copy of this fish survey would see, is Jeff has always done a very good job on the lake. I think he's probably been with our lake for 25 years, 26 years. I know when I first got on the water board in 1997, he had completed the first survey, and I managed to keep in touch with him over those years. I'm not a great fisherman. In fact, I'm not a good fisherman at all. I look to other people to make the recommendation of what they do. I do eat and have had catfish. I've never had a bass. I've had pike when it's prepared by certain restaurants. And really the question is, what is one of the things we can best do to help the lake in all of its fish population? And what kept coming up in the 97 survey would come up again in the 2012 survey, and I'm going to stitch this together real quickly, is that, and I'll quote, as far back, and this is from the survey we just had, a survey, by the way, which they managed to take in 469 pounds of fish, 2,156 different fish, and 26 different species. So I got the feeling these people know what they're doing in 3 days. I would like to have that catch. I mean, that's almost a commercial haul, I think, when you look at it. So what they basically came back to us and said, as far back as 1947, stunted bluegill have been reported in this system. In 1984, a panfish thinning project was carried out using antimycin. However, kill was light and did not result in any improvement in panfish population. This issue of stunted fish is something that has continued to come at us. It's come at us in the 97 survey, it came at us in the 2012. And contrary to some of the audience belief, and I think what Mr. Sinkowitz was inferring in here, the water management boards work very hard at this. I don't think anybody on the water management board takes any of this lightly. We didn't throw darts. We really came to a conclusion that there was one or two fish out there that might help this lake. And really the focus was stunted pan fry. And in all of the things that is consistent, and that's what I will stitch through here real quickly, is what Jeffrey has consistently said is you need to take care of the stunted panfish, the bluegills. You need to find a way to do that. And in 2011 is when we, and this is conversations that go back to 2009, he kept coming back and saying, well, you know, the channel cat is out there. The channel cat is in, I think, 68 or 78 inland lakes. I'll get the number for you the next time we do meet. It's only in 2 lakes in Oakland County. I don't disagree with that. But what they do know about the channel cat is that it is aggressive against slow-moving and smaller stunted panfish, much more so than other game fish. And there are populations that consider it a game fish. I'm not a fisherman, but there are those that do that. So what we ended up with was focusing on a couple different fish. Smallmouth bass is out. Walleye, in this survey in 2012, we actually saw the people who know this game, and I think they do, the biologists know this game, basically back down and said, don't put so much walleye in. No more bass, you don't need it. Okay. Pike, you're in good shape. And they did do some other recommendation, and part of that was basically feeder fish. But going into the survey, which is in 2012, May of 2012, a year earlier, we had the same discussion, Jeffrey and I, and he came to the board and he said, you should try some channel cat. And he said specifically, maybe 300 8-inch catfish. Not every year, but just on some rotation. He also said that he doesn't, they're gonna grow big, they do last for a long time, and he did openly write that there are people that don't like to catch them, and they will cut the lines. I mean, there's no doubt about that. There's also people that I guess do catch them and know how to skin them. With all that said, and if you want to take this to a council, to a work session, that's fine, we can get deeper involved with it. But I think basically as we come into the 2012 survey, which we didn't get the results of until this year, I asked him once again in August of 2012. And I said, so Jeff, where are you? You did your survey in May of 2012. Where are you in August of 2012? And he said that's the very same thing. He said, I keep northern pike stocking, but low. Bluegills are very plentiful, but they have a very poor size structure, and the small fish are much too abundant. Another predator could help balance this, so I would recommend a one-time catfish stocking as an ecological action, even if nobody really wants to fish for them. I definitely say to stock catfish that are 8 inches or larger, since anything smaller would just be sushi for the bass. As an initial one-time stocking of the species, I tried something like 500 catfish and a reduced northern pike stocking. So this was, he had already done a survey, he had his opinion, and we came back again and asked him again, and that's why the board is here. That's why your board works so hard. It's to look at these alternatives and not just willy-nilly. I mean, we have fishermen on our board who weighed this question in 2 or 3 different meetings. And we think this is a damn good recommendation. Not 500, not 750, but let's do 300. Let's do it this one time, and let's see what happens in the future. See if it does have an impact on stunted catfish. In all of the lakes, and we will get these numbers because I think it's important to deliver good numbers that I understand catfish are in, and I believe that number is around 70 plus inland lakes they've been stocked. They have not overtaken the lake. They are not that kind of fish, is what we understand. So however you want to go as a board, as a council, if you want to move to deeper information, love to do it, head on.
Okay, so, and John, my recommendation, my recollection of the Braunschweiger back and forth, of which I remember reading like 1.5 years ago or whenever it was that it came up, was that he recommended channel cats as one among many options that were out there. But when I look at what came back in the actual fishery survey
That's
with
what I'm
regard
getting at.
to the DNR's actual recommendations for how to proceed, in terms of the stunted bluegill, what I see at number 2 is, despite the abundance of predators, the condition of the bluegill population, size distribution, and growth is declining. All age groups from 1 through 8 were present in significant numbers in the catch, but the older fish were just were not growing well. There appears to be a shortage of food for larger individuals, which may be the result of an abundance of starry stonework in the lake. This invasive algae species displaces native plants that provide the habitat necessary for aquatic invertebrates that make up the bluegill forage base. A vegetation control program specifically targeting starry stonewort at all depths where it occurs, not just shallow areas where it creates a direct nuisance, is strongly recommended. So in terms of the stunted bluegill, which we all agree are out there, it's not as bad a problem in our lake as it's been on some cases, but it's still an issue. That recommendation to me is better starry stonewort, because earlier in the survey and then later it says you already have a lot of predators in the lake. Predators aren't going to move the needle on that. And in fact, over there in number 5, it says a regular program of stocking low numbers of fall fingerling walleye is recommended, but higher numbers should be avoided due to the high predator to prey ratio already present in the lake.
Correct.
And so that's
Never in this report has the word catfish come up.
Well,
so,
and-
so, so
And
and,
this
wait,
is his
hold
that's
on, Ed. Let me
report.
let me
Rule
finish.
28.
So what I'm saying in here is, I'm going to always err on the side of not introducing a new species into a lake, because it's very, once they're in, they're in. That genie doesn't come back out of the bottle. And so I feel like I'm missing something. I'm not saying that the Water Management Board picked channel cats willy-nilly out of the air. What I'm saying is, you guys had a lot of discussion about that. You had a lot of talk to that. You came to this conclusion and this recommendation and I don't understand it, and I want to understand it because I think I feel like I'm missing something here.
Well, and I must say, it's not a recommendation that's just based upon our sole analysis. It's a recommendation clearly stated on behalf of the DNR and the gentleman who's in charge of fish management in this area.
Well, that's why I think I need to see that in written form.
I can
need
show
to
that
see
to
this
you
in
right
written
now. I
form.
just read it to
Do you
you.
have the same copy?
I want to see
I
the
have the same
documents
copy.
with all the context around them.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying, and that's why I'm saying, I think we need to bring this to a work session where we can do.
It's fine, let's do it. I think it's a good idea.
Because
And I will ask Jeffrey if he can be present.
I think that would be great. That would be outstanding if we can get him. Because I just, I don't feel comfortable, I just keep feeling like I'm missing something here.
Okay. So are you proposing or?
I would love to entertain a motion that we move the issue of fish stocking for 2013 to a work session to be held on Wednesday, October 30th.
With the water management board.
Yep, with the
Water
water
Management
management.
Board, that's fine.
So-
Want me to second that motion, or do you want me to
7 o'clock.
repeat
I-
that motion?
I'll make the motion.
So I
You
get,
wanna
I
make
get the
the motion?
motion.
I'll second
I've got a
that
second.
motion.
Further discussion?
I think it's a great idea. I think there's passionate views on both sides of it, and I share your lack of what I feel is full understanding of the whole issue. So I think it's a great, that's a good direction to go to, I should say.
Can I just ask for a little clarification on it? Because when I hear the words lack of understanding, it always brings to mind the fact that there's not good definitional groundwork that's been presented?
No, I
or
think
there's a
the
question
burden
of,
is on me
concern?
to dig deeper. I think the information is there, and I've been on water board as well, the liaison and as a member. I mean, I don't question the research they've done or their thoroughness or anything like that.
Okay.
The lack of understanding is not because the information is not there, it's just that I need more time to absorb it. And I think
So
we
it's
have-
really impact is what we're talking
Or it
about.
hasn't all been presented to us, or we haven't seen it all, or there's something
It's
missing.
confusing to all of us, and it's confusing to me. I mean, here we have the fisheries survey, and this letter is dated from Jeffrey Bronscheitel on June 28th of '03. And there's 6 points in there, and you read some of them out. And the word catfish is never brought up. Now, I don't know where, and I'm not, this document is that says we use catfish, and let alone sterilize
Yeah.
catfish.
So Ed, I am
There's a
aware
lot of
that
bad
there
information.
was a long series of back and forth between him and the water board, especially preceding our fish survey.
Mhm.
So, let's get all that back before all the members of council so we can review it. If we can get Jeffrey here for that session, I think that would be really, really helpful. I have a feeling like, he's a bright
That's really
professional, he's gonna say, you
yeah,
could do
that's gonna
this,
be
you could
very
do that, it's really your choice, but.
Just extending that question one more level. I'm hearing that the real item is, of concern is introducing a new species, a foreign species, into the lake and what the impact is. That tends to be the real core issue that needs to be
That is the core
addressed.
of my concern.
Okay, just so I understand. Great.
So,
Yep.
any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, well, that will bring us to our second call to the public. Chance for citizens to weigh in on any and all issues, including catfish.
Linda Champagne out about catfish. I don't see anything here on the agenda about the famous weed harvester. And I think that the general public would probably like to know what's going on with our $250,000 investment that was supposed to be here 4 or 5 or 6 months ago.
We certainly have no weed harvester parked out there. We'll get a full update from the administrator in the administrator's report, but we're continuing to work with them to secure something.
I have a question, but I know it's open call public, but was your intent to do open call before we did number 4, C4?
Yeah, my intent was to do this at 9 PM. So, as short as, the next agenda item after 9 PM as we schedule it.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Good evening. My name is Bill Chatfield. I'm the Operations Director for Wall Lake Schools, and I'm not here to talk about catfish. But I do want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to present some information about the district's $67.5 million safety, security, and technology.
Step up a little
bond.
closer to the mic.
Oh, I'm
Thanks.
sorry. Too close, didn't see it. Wolverine Lake, the village, the lake, sit in the heart of the Walled Lake School District, and we've been very proud of our collaborative relationship with the community. And we just want to make sure that the council and the community is aware about the election and clear about the contents of the bond. We've gotten a lot of feedback, and so we're trying to answer as many questions as we can. First and foremost, this bond issue is a parent-driven initiative. I visited about a year ago, if you may recall, to speak about the district's sinking fund that was up for renewal last year. At that time, there were no intentions of going for a bond issue, but a lot of things changed with the Sandy Hook tragedy, and regrettably, after that, we got a lot of inquiries from parents and community members about the safety of our schools. We met with those folks, and at that time developed a three-phase plan to address safety and security concerns. The first phase began last December, where we began locking our doors and hired entrance monitors to permit access to the school for all visitors. Worked well, but pardon me, not a viable long-term solution given our budget constraints. Phase 2 included installing entrance intercoms and buzzer systems, which we did install this past summer. A good intermediate measure to control access to our schools. But the 2013 bond, pardon me, will enable the district to complete Phase 3 of the plan that does include, amongst other things, primarily office and entrance reconfigurations to all of our schools to better control and direct all visitors into the main office before they have access to the school building. It will also include video surveillance systems, keyless entry systems, updated security alarms, fire alarms, mass notification systems, emergency backup generators, emergency lighting upgrades, emergency responder signage on the outside of the building so that our emergency responders can know exactly where to go in the event of an emergency. Some technology needs such as the district phone system, which frankly is our #1 means of communicating in an emergency. We have an old analog system that needs to be replaced. Some replacement buses are in that as well, which is a safety component due to the age of our buses. And then the technology piece is classroom technology that frankly will meet the needs of our 21st century learners, because we're not quite there yet with them. There's a few other projects that you can see on the website. The bond will have a first-year millage rate of 0.78 mils, with an estimated average of 0.99 mils annually for the remainder of the bond. So for an owner of a $200,000 home in the community, that translates to $99 a week, a year, or as we say, less than $2 a week. So it is important to note that bond monies cannot be used for general operating expenses, no salaries, no benefits, nothing of that nature. And we do believe that this bond program represents needed improvements. It's not a wish list. We really scaled it down to include strictly safety, security, technology needs that will provide a safe and secure environment for our children. So,
How many years is the bond for again?
it would be a 30-year bond. Yep, all bond issues that are state-backed are required to be amortized over 30 years. Incidentally, Walled Lake has a long history of paying off bonds early. In fact, the 2004 bond program will be paid off in 2024 due to some refunding things that we've done in the past. We do take seriously the responsibility entrusted to us with your children, and believe these improvements are important projects that will indeed improve the safety and of your children, our students, and enhance our facilities for years to come. I would encourage everybody to go to the district's website at wlcsd.org. There's a link to many different videos and fact sheets and project lists that are included in the bond, including some endorsements from the Lakes Area Chamber of Commerce and the West End News Magazine. And I've also left some information, a fact sheet here, absentee ballot application for those that are interested on the table here as well. So I just, again, want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to present the information, encourage everybody to vote on November the 5th, and appreciate your time. Would be willing to answer any questions if you have any.
Pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Mr. President, if I could real quick, to piggyback on what Mr. Chatfield had to say. There were 17, I believe, different police departments that they actually got.
John, could you piggyback over at the mic?
Use the big voice. Come on. Yeah, use the big voice. They invited us, 17 different police departments, I believe it was, to come in and give presentations or answer questions and talk to them about what we need as law enforcement officials. And we really clarified some things that were lacking in their future progress as far as what they wanted to do and what we really would like to see them do. We clarified some language that's found confusing for us. We use certain language they use as far as lockdowns or shelter in place. They actually don't intertwine. One is one and one is another, but we were using one language and they were using another. So they did do their homework. They've reached out to the different police departments and leaders of the law enforcement community, and they actually listened to what we had to say and asked us good questions, and we really appreciate the opportunity to be able to do that. And part of the labeling on the doors and windows and things actually come from some of our conversations. So they definitely know what they're doing, and we certainly appreciate the opportunity to work with them. Even though we don't have any schools in our areas, obviously if something were to happen, we would also respond. So, but we appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
Thanks. Paul.
Paul Biediger, 2622 Oakview Drive. I'd like to address, I believe it was business 12A number 1 about the widening of the roads.
Yep.
I'm not an engineer. I don't do pavement. What I do is I've been a firefighter paramedic for 24 years. I have gone on numerous calls that I can't get out of my mind of kids that are walking along the shoulder of the road, bicycles on the shoulder of the road, in gravel, they slip, car comes by, runs them over. Anybody's family member has got to be worth more than the $35,000 we're talking about, right? If we could see it when we get both bids back, that we do go ahead and extend the road a little bit, just for safety of our families. If the bicycles get benefits out of it, great. Going down towards the Dairy Twist, you always see kids walking or riding their bikes right on the edge of the road. So I would like to speak for, if we can afford it, $35,000 for a life isn't much. Go ahead and make the road as wide as Engineer Powell has. Okay?
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else second call? You need the exercise, Bob.
Bob Malik, 1620 Thurston. I have a few things, okay? I'd like to address to you, and maybe Mr. Powell can answer. On the Glengarry Road, the gravel maintenance, if we widen the shoulders, is it our responsibility, or is that part of Oakland County to maintain the gravel?
That road is our responsibility.
Gravel, everything, okay? All right, that answers that. Next thing is, we've talked about this widening to help people. Our village pathway has become a hazard as far as I'm concerned, as far as the striping goes. Okay, if you come onto Connecticut Street and then you head down Darnell, it has white lines that are almost totally wiped out. You get to the intersections where you cross, the same thing. I mean, this needs to be restriped so it is identifiable. We pushed for this for safety in our community, and I think it's needed extremely. And next thing is, and I've talked about it in the past, our Great Wall of Wolverine, the walkway, okay? People still riding bikes across it. When down here at the crossover to Commerce, we have a sign that says walk bicycles or something of that nature. We should have that same kind of signage on each end of that bridge. because there are people that are walking dogs, women pushing baby carriages, and then you get somebody coming through on a bicycle. Okay, it's just not safe or courteous, and that should be maintained and taken care of. And last but not least, the October 30th work session. Is that something we're going to post so the public can come and listen to this?
Yep.
I mean, is it going to be posted on this little, or are we going to go ahead and express it, or do we talk to one of the local papers, the Spinal Column, or that monthly, whatever comes out now? Because I think there's a lot of people that fish this lake that would like to know what's going on, but not after the fact. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else, second call?
Linda Champagne, 250 Oak Island. Just wanted to say what to Mike Stack and the people from Lakes Area Youth Assistance. The village was so well represented at that event. I couldn't believe it. I mean, for such a small village, I think they raised more money than they've ever raised in the past. Kudos to Mike and his team. It was a phenomenal event, and so, so wonderful that we're such a big part of it, so.
Thank you. Anybody else? Seeing none, I will close the second call to the public. And we will move on to item C4. Water Management Board recommends council renew Progressive AE's contract for 2014. And actually, I would say with that recommendation before us, we can't really renew anything until we get a cost estimate from them. But I think we can ask the administrator to proceed to see what the cost of that contract would be.
I think that was part of actually the notes in the Water Management Board.
That was
There
the
a
intent
cost,
there, yeah, I think.
Absolutely.
So,
So I think he was coming in a little bit higher than we anticipated in his initial estimates of what he would do for our next year, so.
So
Should be
I mean,
looked
but-
at carefully.
I'm sorry, but I was at the water board meeting too, and I think it was based upon the Water Management Board's feeling that they've done an excellent job for us relative to the control and the chemical treatments and monitoring all that. I think the Water Management Board, I think a lot of the residents were pleased that the approach that was taken this year and the way it was handled by Progressive A&E, they did an excellent job. That's why the Water Board is recommending that we just keep the ball rolling, shall we say.
I think the administrator asked for us to look at that last month, so we're just following up on.
So, and I wouldn't disagree. I think they've done a good job. I mean, I think at this point, what we could do is have a motion from council to ask the administrator to see what costs would be for Progressive AE. Their contract isn't up till the end of the year, but then we can get back costs. We can see if it's something reasonable that we can continue with, or if we want to go through the bid process again, which I would assume not do, but you gotta do it, you gotta do it. So, do I hear a motion to ask the administrator to engage with Progressive
So
AE?
moved.
Now, second and motion.
Motion Scott, second Nagy. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, request from Captain Ellsworth to send Officer Ayers to Oakland Police Academy Basic Detective School. Recommended by the administrator.
I figured I'd cut down on the time here. All of our officers are charged with the task of investigating our crimes from the beginning to the end. We don't have the luxury of turning over our cases to the Detective Bureau. We are the Detective Bureau. And in such, I feel it's going to be very beneficial for him to learn the ins and outs of how to collect evidence and go from beginning to end. And I've talked to him about this for the last couple of years. Now seems the appropriate time to be able to send him. Hopefully we'll be back up to full staff real shortly, and so just the opportunity arose to send him to the Oakland County Police Academy for Basic Detective School.
Mr. President, I'll make a motion that we send Officer Ayers to the Oakland Police Academy Basic Detective School at a cost of $450.
Yeah, second and motion.
Motion Sinkowitz, second Nagy. Discussion?
Captain Ellsworth, is this the feeling that, I mean, you say all your officers do their own investigative work or something, is this something that Officer Ayers can work to train the other guys or give them some direction, or if they get to a point, he's gonna really play detective, or how is,
No,
is it just for education?
This is additional education for him. I've been through it. Officer Marosco's been through it. Sergeant Cunningham's been through
Okay.
it. Officer List is shown some interest. However, she's got so many other different training things under her belt, and she knows it inside and out. And I'm
Okay.
also here during the day when she's here. So,
Okay.
so it's something that I'd like all of our officers to eventually go to, but it's and now it's just his turn. So.
Okay, that sounds fair. Thank you.
Great training, I think. Any further discussion? Roll call vote.
Yes?
Yes.
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 You're welcome.
All right.
Waste collection.
E, F, G, thank you. Waste collection rules and regulations. So I think we've got a revised batch here from our attorney.
You may. You may have it, I don't have it.
It was
Oh,
placed in
that's
front
a
of you
loose-
tonight.
It's a
It was not-
resolution. I put it in the form of a resolution because your ordinance requires
There it is, I'm sorry.
a resolution to adopt your rules and regulations. So it's exactly what you saw last month with some legal whereases in the beginning.
Is this resolution here, right?
Yeah. So all of
Also for
the
Village of Milford?
does? Where?
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, I mean at the top, but I mean
Yeah.
here. So we can just
Typo,
cross
choose
that
the
out.
typist,
Okay.
choose the typist.
Sorry about that.
I thought this was an example at first.
No, this is it.
I see one other change we need to make in here.
Yeah, I saw something that was just,
Okay.
But
So,
go ahead, we'll get to, we'll get.
okay, good. So my bad.
We'll
My
get to the
bad
rest of the
typing
details.
skills. Okay, so the beginning here is just, whereas this is what your ordinance says. The end part here is what you saw last month. I made some changes. What I changed was, there was some discrepancy about, in the event an official holiday falls on the day of the week or
Yep.
that the collection time
And I
would
take it back,
change.
I'm rereading, I misread it the first time. So that's
Okay,
correct.
good. So there's only one so far. Okay, so that would be collection schedules 3, number 4. That one changed. That's page 3 of the resolution.
So it's only delayed if it actually falls on the holiday.
So then, on number 5, same section, the time was changed from 5 PM to 12 PM. And under leaf collection, number 1, Captain Ellsworth had some concerns about designating or allowing leaves to be placed in the actual paved portion of the roadway, and it needs to be in the adjacent areas to the roadway. So that language was changed there, and in number, I think, 5.
Yep. for 1
And,
week.
and then 1 week prior to, that one was changed as well. And that was all the changes. So-
Okay, I think those were that's everything I recall.
Just for clarification, I don't remember, did we have, under yard waste, when the dates were, when we terminated it and when we didn't? There's a termination date on yard
Yes,
waste.
April
Yes,
through
Last
November.
weekend and,
First of
April-
April and
First
go
of
through
April through
November.
the end of
Yeah.
November.
right.
Okay,
Do we have it in here?
it's not in there, I just
It's
thought.
on number 2.
number 2, I thought, yeah.
Yes, it is. Yard waste
That's what it
collection
seems.
shall begin
Yes.
approximately the first week of April and go through November, not to exceed 35 weeks collection in any one given year.
Okay.
Oh, there it is. Okay, I was looking in the wrong
And
section.
that's part of our waste management contract.
Yeah, a lot of the language in here that I put in here originally was from your waste management contract.
Going back, was that under collection schedule number 3 where you, or number 4, I'm sorry, was that about the holiday?
Yes.
And the correction was that a holiday does not fall ever on?
No, the correction was in the previous edition, it had us delaying if there was a holiday before it would get pushed back a week, but we don't actually
Oh, we don't do
delay.
that, you're right.
It's only delayed if it's on the holiday.
Yeah. And number 5 in that same category was,
From 5 PM to 12 PM. It had originally said
So we
5
made it no earlier than noon the day before.
yeah, all right.
Okay, I think that captures the things we discussed
Yeah.
last time. And, as we said in the last one, if we try it with this set of rules and we find ourselves dissatisfied, we can always change it.
Yep.
So do I hear a motion to adopt the resolution as presented with the change from Milford to Wolverine Lake.
I'll make that motion, please.
Motion
I'll second.
Nagy. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Oh, second Kaznicki. Further discussion? All right, got trash rules again. Let me get a roll call vote.
Pedro?
Yes.
Sinkowitz?
Yes.
McGee?
Yes.
Nagy?
Yes.
Kazaki?
Yes.
Elmore?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Thank you, council. Thank you, Jennifer. Okay. We've already done second call, set topics for the October 2013 work session. We already set that when we talked about fish stockings.
And that date is
The
proposed.
date is going to be
30th.
October 30th,
Which is the fifth
the
Wednesday.
5th Wednesday of the month.
And don't dress up for
Angels
Halloween
Day.
at the meeting.
I know.
Do we have to dress
Was
for
there
the
a reason
meeting?
why we
So none
didn't-
of you can go out toilet papering until after the
Was
work
there a reason
session.
why we didn't do the 23rd?
That was-
Yeah, it's going to be out of town.
Oh.
and
Bring a
it's
dozen
key.
eggs to the work session.
Yeah, there
Is
you go.
that Halloween night?
No, it's the night before.
It's doubles.
You should have that open.
Question for you, Mr. Chair. How are we gonna get this out? As some people in the audience have requested notification. I mean, I imagine probably the regular,
We could put it on the email
Regular
blast.
We could
email
put an
list.
email blast, yeah. I think that's going to be more effective than the other stuff.
what about maybe the signs?
We could.
That's a good idea.
Sure.
Yeah.
Work session, fish stocking, October
Yep, council
30th.
work session, fish stocking, October 30th.
Sounds good.
Yeah. I mean, I really would like to hear the input of, everybody who actually fishes the lake.
Call all fishing.
Okay. So I don't think we have to take any further action there because we already did the motion to set that. Pending business, I believe, can pend. Brings us to update from Captain Ellsworth.
There's nothing, thank you.
You don't have to go to the mic for that then. All right, update from the treasurer.
Mr. President, we will be beginning our audit field work probably next week, with the goal being our usual presentation at your next regularly scheduled meeting in November. So far, there are no real issues as far as poor development or adverse developments or anything like that. We'll be doing something a little bit different as far as how we've accounted for the down payment that we've made on the harvester. We can't expense that in our current fiscal year. It goes down as a prepaid expense, and then we'll face the expense in our next fiscal year. But other than that, there's no real machinations or anything to worry about there as far as, we'll end up in good shape again. There's no, again, no adverse developments. I also wanted to thank Ken Milburn of Merge Live Productions, whom you see in the back of the room, the man in black. We have done a lot of things over the last couple of weeks, and he and I together, and as I pointed out to you in your email, he about 92% of it, strung some wires here, did some things. The hope is that our product is going to look real nice on the webcast, based on our look-see yesterday it did. And he's monitoring it as we speak, and I hope you really appreciate his efforts, which have been extensive, kind of above and beyond the call. I've enjoyed working with him. We're not done, we've just started here, and I'm sure there'll be some things that we'll correct or kind of, modify as we go along. That's it.
Question, Mike, relative to the presentation, it's on the website tonight. Is it going to be available for reviewing, or is it's live and that's the only time it is right now?
You'll be able to review it also.
Oh, so it'll be up there so you can go back and look at previous council sessions?
Yeah, it will be archived, that's right.
Okay, that's what, thanks for the word, I forgot the word, thank you.
Okay, anything else?
No, sir.
All righty. Update from the administrator.
I wanted to thank Ken and Mike also. They did a lot of work getting this set up for tonight, and hopefully it comes through well. The next thing, I just wanted to give you a couple updates. There are 213 homes that are part of a special assessment or who have paid cash for the sanitary sewer. And out of those, 146 people have already hooked up to sanitary sewer.
All right, great.
The other thing, I want to just give you a little update on some of the things that DPW has been doing. The sluice gates are closed, or, sorry, opened, and as of October 1st, and the level today was 918.02, so it's going down. I think I mentioned last month that the Greenaway drain was being worked on, and the gabion baskets are installed, and that work has been completed. If you haven't gone across the Oak Island Bridge, they've stained the entire area. It looks really, really nice.
Great job.
And we'll be working on some signs to place there that say slow, no way beyond the bridge, or something to put on the bridge by next year. The fire hydrants have all been painted in the village.
Nice.
Mr. Nagy.
Yes, I know.
And they've worked a lot in the park this year on the equipment, also painting benches and tables that were not replaced with wood. The ones that are replaced with new wood, we're not going to put any paint on them. The buoys were removed and washed, and the buoy at the end of Penny Lake was covered with zebra mussels. And so they've come back in the lake, and there are quite a few. We have some pictures. The old fuel tanks that they used to fuel their equipment have been replaced with some double-walled containers that are supposed to be better than what we had. All the gravel roads have been graded, and the boat washing station has been removed. That's just a few of the things that they've been working on. I wanted to let you know that the packing party is going to be for the troops, is Saturday, 9:30 till noon at the Shepherd of the Lakes Church, and it is a very worthwhile cause, and I've attended for a few years, and it'll between 9:30 and noon, not a lot of time, but a lot gets done.
We have a lot of room in my garage for more stuff, so
And
don't be
yes,
afraid to drop it
yes,
off.
anything that you need to drop off can be dropped off at the Nedros.
Mhm.
And then I guess we're gonna get into the harvester.
It's on the flyer.
I received an email today that the harvester will be running inside testing next week. So I've got a lot of pictures, and I'll pass those around, but we don't have it yet. But the testing will be done inside of their building next week. And it'll be moving on to us after that.
And I thought it had to go in the water there before it came down here.
Well, they're going to test it inside next
Yeah.
week. That's the latest email that I have.
I thought they were supposed to test it
See if it floats.
on the water.
I will check on that.
I mean, I would,
I'm not sure which is most important.
well, I mean, I thought that one of
You
your
gotta
earlier
kinda have both,
reports
so-
said that they were going to, had to be test, they had to get it in the water to test it.
That's probably the next step after the.
I mean, because I sure wouldn't,
All of the hydraulics and things can be tested without being on water. So the water testing would be the barge itself.
in the barge itself to make sure,
Yes.
I sure would want to see it in the water. Make sure it's in the water, let them send you a video of it in the water
And our
running.
plan was to get it here and get it in the water, but I'm not sure we're going to be getting it in the water here this year.
And if not, then let them keep it till next year. Then we don't have to worry about storing it inside. Then we don't have to
I
pay
would
for
just
it.
as soon have it in hand.
Yeah, we want to get possession of it as quick as possible.
And
Anything
we're
else?
gonna get paid for it too.
Did you want me to update on
Yeah.
Is that it?
Underground storage tank?
Oh.
Yeah.
I think you all received an email from Mr. Walden about the underground storage tank. And if you remember at your July meeting, we accepted the AMIX change order. And the plan then was that they were gonna send a letter to the DEQ, which they did. We got back, and they had discussions with them. They wanted more sampling. We did more sampling on our property in August, and we also did more sampling this week, Monday and Tuesday. So we are moving along with that. It just takes a long time because every step of the way it goes back to the DEQ for their blessing. And the residents were notified of the sampling on our property.
I can't recall the date when we hope to put this thing, quote unquote.
If you remember from the July meeting,
That's
they
what I
hope to be finished with this by summer of 2014, so that's
Okay.
next year.
Yeah, it's a long process.
Have you heard back from Mr.
I understand
Walden
his
or any other
frustration with the
residents?
length of the process, because I share a lot of it.
Have you heard anything back from Mr. Walden after his email? And do you have
I
further
actually
report to-
called him, left him a long message, and he did not respond, so I did send him an email today, and he did respond. Thank you. He did get the voicemail message, and we're gonna set up a time to talk this
Are we
week or next.
talking to the other two residents at the same time?
I have talked with them each time we've done sampling. We will have another meeting with all the residents when the samplings, reports get back.
Can I share these photos with the audience?
Sure.
It does now look like a harvester. Great progress.
Yeah, perch and perch at least now.
I think that's it. All right, let's go to council comments then. We'll start this one down there with Scott.
Well, I want to say that the bridge, it looks great. I don't know, 30 years since it's been there or something?
Well, it was,
81, okay, yeah.
it was made out of, it was creosote
Yeah, I
before, and
understand.
we're not allowed to put that on anymore,
Correct,
so.
but it does look absolutely
It does look
great.
nice.
Right. And the village signs around the village,
Yes.
decorations look super.
Yes.
I think that was a great recommendation by Parks and Rec. Thank you for making that recommendation. And I just wanted to echo what Linda said, all of those that were in attendance at Taste of the Lakes. It was a great event, and I've got a 3-day stay at the cabins over here in the.
Oh, you won.
Yeah, I won. Well,
He's a winner.
won. I was talked into it. Becky is a hell of a salesperson, by the way, there, Chief.
She is.
So, anybody want to do a couple days, we can make arrangements. Ask me during the week, though. I didn't read it close enough. I thought I was going to get a weekend for the kids, but thank you.
Nedrow.
Yeah, I want to ditto John's and his Champagne's comments about Taste of Lakes. I was also there and gained probably about 10 pounds that night.
Oh,
so.
man, good.
That was packed. It was really a good turnout, so. And also kudos to Officer List for her involvement. She's done a great job, so. The only other thing I had was the packing party, just to ditto that again. And if anybody has any questions of what we'd need, just call Christy, my wife, tomorrow or Friday. And like I said, we've got plenty of room in the garage. Donations have been down this year. The credit union that usually gives us a lot, their in-stay day was 2 days after. So we're not gonna probably get a lot from them this year, so we're gonna have, so we could use it, so bring it on. Thanks.
Sinkowitz.
Yeah, I thought the signs looked really nice with a little bit of holiday decoration on them. Let's see. I saw some activity at the launch site with the security cameras. Are they functioning yet?
We're working on it.
Okay.
We're in the process. Actually, we have, I believe, the cameras installed. Certain cameras are not up and functioning yet. However, we do.
We're making
expect that-
progress.
We're making great progress out there.
Good. That's-
I'm very, very happy with the work so far. We're almost there.
And the last question, all this microphone and stuff, I was under the impression that, I understand what the microphones are doing is so he can broadcast, but I also thought that there was a time, or is this phase 2, where there'd be speakers, so when people talk into there, for me, I don't hear any different. In fact, I hear less, because their face is into the microphone.
They are doing, there is a speaker back there. I think actually, Ed, I can hear it better today, but,
Okay.
maybe we should look into if,
Well,
I'm sure
either
that speaker can be
move it
louder.
up towards the front or something, because, when, first of all, where they are in the audience, but when you're talking right into that, your voice doesn't carry a lot past. In fact, I could hear everything, but I didn't see any improvement. So I didn't know if there was gonna be more speakers, or just that speaker, we can fool around and find a strategic place so we can hear as well as he can hear through the microphone.
Well, anybody in the back of the room have a problem hearing? Right?
No.
Okay.
What?
No, I didn't have a problem hearing, but I just thought that.
You
was gonna
expected it to be louder when people were up
It was
there.
gonna be pronounced more,
Oh.
louder, but we didn't need, as far as I was concerned, we didn't need these anyway. but
We'll work it out.
I didn't hear any improvement, that's it.
Combo.
Well, I thank Ken for his efforts too. I think it's gonna work out great, and it helps in the outreach, I think, for council across the board. I want to also thank Officer List and Mike Stack for their chairmanship of the Taste of the Lakes. We had our board meeting today, and it was in fact a record amount of money they've all-time record. It was well received, and the piggyback on what Linda said about Wolverine Lake's impact on it, I mean, it's more than dramatic. It dominates the other communities. I mean, it's incredible, and the funds that we still support, and the Wall Lake, they're going through a difficult period, so they're not supporting, and Wixom probably will not support moving forward either. So they're getting more dependent on council and the residents of Wolverine Lake. I mean, we dramatically impact that event, and it could not have gone any better. And I won when the flag that was donated flown over the Capitol. That's what I won. So I had that in my office. So that's what all I have for today. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, everybody's already talking about it, but I also wanted to comment on Taste of the Lakes. I had a conversation with Mike that evening, and I think he told me, I could be wrong, but it was way over half, if not probably 75% of the people that attended were Wolverine Lake. I did hear one comment while I was standing in line to get an adult beverage that for some people it was hard to get tickets if they're working during the day. So maybe that's something that they can think about, or maybe there's other areas that they can pick tickets up, or I don't know. I'm just thinking that maybe something that could be improved. I also asked him, I said, can you find a bigger venue? Because it was jammed. And he says it's very difficult. I asked him whether Bay Point was larger. He says, no, it's not larger. He said they had tried one year to put the food in one area and then the auction part in the other area. It just didn't flow. It wasn't good. So, but yeah, he understood that too. So, and I think Sharon was the big winner this year.
Oh, I bought a lot of things at the silent auction, yes.
Yes, you did.
Oh, you
Yeah,
did?
yeah. And I was hoping somebody here would get that bucket of booze so we could have a party. But I put my share in there. That's for sure.
I did too.
So it was.
Believe me, that's a mixed, winning that is a mixed
Yeah.
blessing.
You feel guilty if you don't.
Still recovering.
Still recovering.
So that's it pretty much.
Maggie?
A couple things that the signs, yes, I thought that dressed up the village. First time I've seen it done. I don't know if it's been done before, but I'd like to touch. I mean, I think you answered about the CCTV that's in motion. Where's our new car?
It's what's supposed to be until the end of the month.
Okay.
They said the 10th it'll be, so that's
Okay.
what, 2 days?
Today's the 9th. That's tomorrow.
Test hydraulics.
See if it floats.
See if it floats.
See if it floats.
See if it floats.
No, actually, it's supposed to be on the 10th. So.
Okay. The other thing, I think what I mentioned to Mr. McGee before the meeting is, I don't know if we ever looked at a cordless mic for the audience participation. They didn't have to get out of the audience to stand up. It was just thought you could just pass it around. One other comment relative to the trash ordinance, I appreciate it. It was something I think I initiated, and it was passed, and I appreciate the support of the council. Thank you. And have a good Halloween. Oh, a week before that, won't we?
Yeah.
That's right.
That's okay, we can still wish people good. It's our last full meeting. Just a few items for me. I was out of town for work, so I'm sorry I missed Taste of the Lakes. Frankly, I'm glad Monique did not win another wheelbarrow fan.
That your family was represented.
Wanted to also extend my thank you to Ken and Mike for all the work they did
Yes.
in putting together the streaming of this online. I know Ed didn't hear an improvement, but I actually could hear people a lot better, and maybe it's just because I was a little bit closer, or was getting some from that. But the audience comments, I actually heard a lot better with people up here and talking. So I think that was pretty good. I think we're about to to find one of the other things where we're gonna have to make an adjustment when we do our closed session. We're gonna go up to the little room because we have a whole room wired for sound on the internet, so we
Can't shut this down.
you know, in theory we could, but we're going up to the little room. And lastly, I just wanted to mention is, you know, I got a couple questions about Open Meetings Act and agendas and subcommittees. So I just really want to make a reminder to everybody that, you know, if you're going to gather any number of people for decision-making purposes in the village, you really need to do it as a posted meeting, subcommittee, committee meeting. I understand that people talk to people, we all talk to people, you have conversations, you have updates, but please keep in mind, because a couple people are asking me questions, keep in mind that, you know, if you're gonna have a group of people gathered together for purposes of making decisions about village business, make sure you make it an official meeting. It's a hoop, please hop through it. And that is what I have for today. So with that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn to closed session to discuss an attorney's opinion upstairs.
So moved.
Motion Medros, second Nagy. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We are in closed session. Oh, yes. Well, we had the roll call on the consent
yeah,
agenda.
you did.
Yeah, we had the full roll call on the consent
Yep,
agenda.
sorry.
So this is just closing. So
Are we gonna come back down here?
we're good. We're gonna come back down.